Chapter 9:33. You, seeing that Sun Shangxiang actually dared to attack him, Nie Tian's expression changed. No matter what, he was still a marshal. His position in the Broken Kingdom was lofty, so why was he not allowed to even complain? But before he could finish his sentence, the spiritual energy crashed into his body. Bang! In the next second, Nie Tian's entire body turned into a bloody mist. The Grand Marshal of the Broken Kingdom, an existence above tens of thousands of people, died just like that. Ah, Lord Marshal, how could this be? When the remaining generals saw this scene, all of them turned pale with fright and retreated in fear. Who else has any objections? Who else dares to go against the imperial edict? Sun Shangxiang's gaze swept across the crowd. We dare not. The generals' faces were pale as they hurriedly knelt down and saluted. What a joke! Even someone of Nie Tian's status could be killed without hesitation. So what were they worth? Among all of you, aside from that trash just now, who has the highest position? Sun Shangxiang swept his gaze across the crowd and asked. Hearing Sun Shangxiang's question, everyone's gaze turned to a burly man. The burly man looked at everyone's gaze and already cursed their 18 generations of ancestors in his heart. The burly man felt bitter in his heart, but he still fearfully looked at Sun Shangxiang and said, Reporting to Lord, it's me. Sun Shangxiang looked at the burly man for a long time, but the burly man's heart was flustered as he looked at Sun Shangxiang in fear. It was as if he was waiting for a death sentence. This million-strong army will be temporarily handed over to you. You are now a marshal, so I don't need to teach you what to do. Sun Shangxiang said to the burly man. What? Hearing Sun Shangxiang's words, the burly man was clearly stunned, but then he was delighted. This general obeys the imperial edict and will go organize the surrender now. Although surrendering wasn't something honorable, in the burly man's view, he was following the emperor's orders. Just comparing the glory, it was none of his business. The only thing that mattered to him was that he had finally become the marshal that he had yearned for day and night. I hope you won't disappoint me, Sun Shangxiang said. At the same time, his imposing aura rolled out and oppressed everyone. Everyone could feel the powerful aura emanating from Sun Shangxiang's body. None of them could resist it, and they all prostrated themselves on the ground. Then, Sun Shangxiang no longer looked at the crowd and left. Phew! Seeing Sun Shangxiang leave, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. That was because they had just witnessed how easily Sun Shangxiang had killed Nie Tianhe. They felt that their lives did not belong to them, and they did not even dare to breathe heavily. All of them were afraid that Sun Shangxiang would be displeased and cause Sun Shangxiang to kill them. Furthermore, in the end, when they sensed Sun Shangxiang's aura, they felt as if they had stepped into the gates of hell. What are you still standing there for? Go and deal with the mission that my lord gave you, the burly man said unhappily when he saw that everyone was still in a daze. Oh my God, did the Broken Kingdom eat the wrong medicine? That's right. Why did the Broken Kingdom suddenly surrender? Who can tell me, did the Broken Kingdom's emperor eat the wrong medicine? At this moment, the soldiers of the Tianyuan Kingdom were constantly collecting weapons and equipment. At the same time, they were discussing in puzzlement. However, it could be seen that everyone's face was brimming with a happy smile. After all, when they first set out, none of them thought that they would win. Every one of them had the mentality that they would die. Who knew that the Broken Kingdom would surrender just as the war began? How could they not be happy? Reporting to General Guan, all the rebels have been killed. On the Myriad Kingdom continent, there are no more forces. All of them are citizens of the Yen Long Celestial Empire. On the Myriad Kingdom continent, it had been half a year since the ancient demon realm of Yihao. On the other hand, the Myriad Kingdom continent was vast and rich in resources. There were countless forces of all sizes. However, at this moment, all the remaining forces in the Myriad Kingdom continent had been destroyed. The Myriad Kingdom continent no longer had any other forces, not even subsidiary forces. They would either submit or be destroyed. This was the imperial edict that Yanlong's army respected everywhere they went. Of course, at the beginning, they naturally encountered huge obstacles. However, in the face of absolute strength, everything was fleeting. Standing on a mountain peak, Guan Yu's face revealed a smile. At the same time, there was a sense of loss. He was smiling because after such a long time, he had finally completed the task that Yi Hao gave him. He was disappointed because the Myriad Kingdom continent was now peaceful. In the future, there would be no chance for him to take action. I wonder how His Majesty is doing in the ancient demon realm. When Guan Yu thought of the ancient demon realm, there was a sense of longing in his heart. He longed to appear by Yi Hao's side and continue to help Yi Hao conquer the world. Return to the capital. Following Guan Yu's order, the entire army immediately turned into streams of light and flew into the sky. When the people of the Myriad Kingdom continent saw the army pass by, they all knelt down and kowtowed to show their respect. The world is peaceful now. I wonder when he will return. Guishuefu sat in the dazzling main hall. At this moment, there were several charming beauties sitting in the main hall. Each of them had their own merits. These beauties were naturally Yi Hao's women. In addition to Guishuefu, Miaolian, Mu Qingyu, Li Yuluo, and Mo Jingfang were all here. Of course, in addition to these few people, there were also Song Feifei and Jiuhong Chestnut, who had a real relationship with Yi Hao. Of course, the two women's feelings for Yi Hao were completely unimaginable. I heard from my mother that the ancient demon realm is extremely dangerous. Direction, I guess. With his strength, what kind of difficulty can he face? It's just that half a year has passed, and Purple Heaven Supreme God's injuries have become even more serious. I wonder if he has found the antidote. At this moment, the women sitting in the main hall could not help but discuss among themselves. However, on each of their faces, there was a look of longing for Yi Hao. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for unifying the Myriad Kingdom continent. What? Completed? Yi Hao, who was sitting on the dragon throne of Broken Kingdom, suddenly opened his eyes. Yi Hao was happy at first, but then he smiled bitterly. Yi Hao was happy that the Myriad Kingdom continent had finally completely become his territory. But he smiled bitterly, thinking back how he wanted to complete the mission of unifying the Myriad Kingdom continent, because then he could summon all the generals. But even now, he could summon all the historical generals, which corresponded to the peak cultivation of the Myriad Kingdom continent, which was of no help to him at all. Just like Guan Yu's strength, almost no one in the Myriad Kingdom continent could match him. But in the ancient demon realm, he was just an ant. After all, the strongest under his command was Sun Shangxiang, an Atman body realm cultivator. Chapter 9:34. Ding Dong. The system is preparing to change the reward according to the host's current situation. Is the host willing to change the reward? If not, you will continue to receive the previous reward. Just as Yi Hao was smiling bitterly, the system notification sounded again. Changing the reward can be done this way. Hearing the system's words, Yi Hao could not help but be stunned. Then he asked, "Then what's the reward after the modification?" "The reward will be random," the system replied coldly. Hearing this, Yi Hao almost cursed it out loud. But this was indeed the system's style, so Yi Hao was relieved. "Host, please make your choice within 30 seconds. Otherwise, you will default to the previous reward." Hearing the system's words, Yi Hao immediately said, "Change the reward for me," because in Yi Hao's opinion, the previous reward would be useless to him and would be of little use. Maybe the reward he received after changing it would be useful to him. Thinking of this, Yi Hao couldn't help but look forward to it. Ding dong, does the host want to change the reward? Yes. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for changing the reward. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1 Ascension Realm. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 3 slots. You can summon the generals of the Myriad Kingdom continent to your side and raise your cultivation base to level 1 Atman body. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 100 Demon Emperor leveling pills. The reward is not bad. Although Yi Hao didn't hear the previous reward clearly, just hearing about the Demon Emperor leveling pills made him feel that the change of the reward was worth it. Of course, Yi Hao quickly looked at the first 2 rewards. Ascension Mirror, elementary, able to contact any plane belonging to the host. allowing the host to appear in that world as a mirror image. Doesn't this mean that I can see everything happening in the Myriad Kingdom continent through this Ascension mirror? Seeing the introduction of the Ascension mirror, Yi Hao was shocked and then delighted. Because he had been in the ancient demon domain for a long time, it was impossible for him not to miss his parents, women, and subordinates. Yi Hao suppressed his excitement and continued to look at the reward. Then he was overjoyed. This meant that he could now summon 3 Atman body realm subordinates. This immediately reminded Yi Hao of Guan Yu. Yi Hao believed that with Guan Yu's prowess, once he reached the level of Atman body, he would be unrivaled among the same cultivation level as him. Yi Hao looked at the empty hall and then at the tree demon cage. He then took out the heaven's mirror, opened the heavenly mirror. Yi Hao then followed the system's instructions and sent his consciousness into the heavenly mirror. Host, you currently only have one plane, the Myriad Kingdom continent. Do you wish to enter? Yi Hao had just inserted his consciousness into the heavenly mirror when he saw a huge planet. Then the system spoke. Yes, ding dong. Congratulations to the host for entering the Myriad Kingdom continent. You can appear anywhere according to the host's will. Since that's the case, let my people remember my existence. This was a chance to establish his prestige. Yi Hao naturally wouldn't let it go to waste. No matter what, the Myriad Kingdom continent was his territory. Naturally, everyone knew that he was the king of the Myriad Kingdom continent, the master of the Myriad Kingdom continent. I want my image to appear in the entire Myriad Kingdom continent. Yi Hao used his consciousness to control the heavenly mirror. Reputation is required to use the heavenly mirror. Although the reputation system has been shut down, the host reputation has been stored. With the host reputation, you can use the mirror image for 3 minutes. At the same time, the system's voice rang out. So much, Yi Hao couldn't help but frown. One had to know that he felt that his reputation was quite high. Because the host has reached the ancient demon domain, summoning generals of the ancient demon domain will put a huge burden on the system. Therefore, the reputation and soul points that the host obtains will be consumed by the system. Moreover, the Myriad Kingdom continent is huge. If you want your mirror image to spread throughout the Myriad Kingdom continent, the reputation that will be consumed will naturally be huge. Yi Hao nodded. He finally understood why the system had reputation, soul points, and resurrection points at the beginning, but it was removed when he reached the ancient demon domain. Now that he heard the system say this, Yi Hao could also sense that the system's situation wasn't optimistic. After all, he more or less knew that the chaos realm was in a sealed state, and relying on the system alone, the system no longer had enough energy to help him continuously summon experts and powerful equipment. Therefore, he had to continuously kill magical beasts or enemies to obtain special energy for the system to use and operate. Of course, the system won't waste the energy that the host obtains. Everything is for the sake of the system's operation and the host's growth. Hearing the system's words, Yi Hao couldn't help but nod. Does the host want to use it? After the system's prompt, it continued to ask. Yes, Yi Hao replied. Because he knew that now that he was in control of the Myriad Kingdom continent, it was his opportunity to obtain reputation. Although he could only use the heavenly mirror for 3 minutes. But Yi Hao believed that these 3 minutes would bring him a huge amount of reputation. Moreover, it would bring him an endless stream of reputation. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for successfully using it. Reputation is being consumed. Once the reputation is exhausted, the heavenly mirror will automatically shut down. As the system's voice ended, the sky above the Myriad Kingdom continent started to flicker with golden light, and the wind and clouds started to surge. Seeing this sudden phenomenon, everyone looked at the sky nervously and curiously. What's going on? Could it be that something big is about to happen? It can't be. The Myriad Kingdom continent has just been peaceful, and now something is going to happen? General Guan, what's going on? Just as Guan Yu was leading the army back to the imperial city. Seeing the sudden change in the sky, countless soldiers stopped in their tracks and looked at the sky. What a powerful force! Guan Yu looked at the sky, not understanding what was going on. He frowned and muttered, "Look, there seems to be a portrait in the sky." Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "Why aren't you kneeling when you see me?" Suddenly, the portrait in the sky spoke. That loud and majestic voice was like a clap of thunder, exploding in the sky above the myriad kingdom continent. At the same time, the portrait emitted a boundless pressure, causing all the living beings on the myriad kingdom continent to feel a sense of submission. At almost the same time, all the magical beasts on the myriad kingdom continent prostrated themselves on the ground and looked at the portrait in the sky with worship in their eyes. Chapter 9:35. Because Yi Hao has the origin power of this world. Although Yi Hao is a mirror image projected onto the myriad kingdom continent. But Yi Hao's aura and origin power also appeared on the myriad kingdom continent at the same time. And Yi Hao has the origin power, that is, the god of all magical beasts in the myriad kingdom continent. So when all magical beasts saw Yi Hao, they did not hesitate and directly knelt down. You all have done well. In the days when I am not around, the myriad kingdom continent will be in your hands. Yi Hao swept his gaze across the myriad kingdom continent, all the powerful magical beasts that have transformed into human form. Most of these demonic beasts wanted to submit to him because he was in control of the source energy. And some of them are magical beasts that Yi Hao obtained in the myriad kingdom continent, those magical beasts that followed him in battle. For these magical beasts, Yi Hao naturally did not mistreat them. He directly raised their cultivation to the peak of the myriad kingdom continent, becoming powerful experts to manage the magical beasts. Yes, Your Majesty. When Guan Yu saw the portrait, he was stunned at first. Then he became ecstatic and quickly knelt down. General Guan Yu greets Your Majesty. Long live the Emperor. Guan Yu immediately knelt down and shouted. He did not expect to see Yi Hao now, and Yi Hao even appeared in such a special way. It really surprised him. To be able to have the ability to spread his portrait all over the myriad kingdom continent like Yi Hao, Guan Yu really can't imagine what kind of ability Yi Hao has. How could he be so powerful? Although he can also condense martial Dao power like Yi Hao, he definitely can't compare to Yi Hao. Your Majesty, what kind of fortuitous encounter did you encounter in the past 6 months to become so powerful? Guan Yu can't help but ask curiously. It's actually Your Majesty. Didn't great Emperor Yanlong leave the myriad kingdom continent? He actually came back. Oh my God, great Emperor Yanlong is so powerful. At this moment, almost all the humans in the myriad kingdom continent were looking at Yi Hao in the sky, their faces full of admiration as they discussed. One must know that when the Yanlong Heavenly Empire unified the 10,000 countries continent, they did not just attack the enemy. Instead, they would proclaim Yi Hao's greatness and build statues of Yi Hao to praise Yi Hao's great achievements. In less than 3 years, he had unified the 10,000 kingdoms continent, causing the never-ending wars of the 10,000 kingdoms continent to end. He established a supreme empire, the Yanlong Heavenly Kingdom, and let everyone live a peaceful life. Therefore, the hearts of countless citizens were filled with admiration for Yi Hao. Greetings, Your Majesty. Long live Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. Long live Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. Long live Your Majesty. Immediately, all the humans in the 10,000 kingdoms continent looked up at Yi Hao in the sky and said with respect and reverence, Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for gaining 1 million reputation points. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for gaining 1 million reputation points. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for gaining 1 million reputation points. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for gaining 1 million reputation points. Just as everyone in the 10,000 kingdoms continent was cheering for Yi Hao, the system suddenly exploded with a system notification. 3,000 worlds. There are more than 3,000 real worlds. In every world, the strong are respected, and the world is the same. The weak world is destined to be bullied by the strong world, Yi Hao said slowly. He wanted to inspire the belief of everyone in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent to become stronger. This was because the strength of a warrior was related to strength, and strength was related to the power of martial arts in the world. After all, the more power of martial arts in the world, the faster a warrior's cultivation would be. And the strength of the world was related to the living beings in the world. The stronger the living beings were, the more prosperous the world would be, and the stronger the world would be. For example, in a country, the happier and stronger the people were, the stronger the country would be, and the more prosperous the country would be. On the other hand, the stronger the country was, the more prosperous it was, the happier the citizens would be, and the stronger they would be. And the world, which is the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, was the same as the country becoming stronger. If one wanted the 10,000 Kingdoms continent to become stronger, then all the citizens of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent must become stronger. As long as all the people became stronger, the myriad kingdom continent would also become stronger. Just like the 10,000 Kingdoms continent and the ancient demon domain, they were two different planes. But the level of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent was lower than the ancient demon domain. Therefore, the strength of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent was not as strong as the ancient demon domain. This was also why the experts of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent could not compare to the experts of the ancient demon domain, because their strength levels were not on the same level. For example, one was the plane of ants, and the other was the plane of humans. And in the world of ants, there were weak and strong. But no matter how strong an ant was, it could not compare to the weakest human, because the strength of an ant was not on the same level as a human. And that ant was equivalent to the 10,000 Kingdoms continent plane, and the human was equivalent to the ancient demon domain plane. Of course, the ancient demon domain plane was not the strongest. Naturally, there were stronger planes above it. If he wanted the 10,000 Kingdoms continent to become as strong as the ancient demon domain, first, he had to make the living beings of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent as strong as the living beings of the ancient demon domain. Therefore, this was also why Yihao wanted to stimulate the desire of everyone in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent to cultivate. After all, there were so many worlds. Who knew when the 10,000 Kingdoms continent would be attacked by other planes? And if he were to rely on himself to protect this plane, it was obviously unrealistic. Therefore, if he wanted to protect this plane, he naturally needed everyone to become stronger. Just like if the 10,000 Kingdoms continent became as strong as the ancient demon domain, then he could lead the army of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent and attack the ancient demon domain. There was no need to be like this. In the ancient demon domain, he could only develop step by step. And now, the 10,000 Kingdoms continent had completely become his world. And the entire world was slowly changing into the world of the Chaos Realm. This could be considered as devouring this world and transforming it into the Chaos Realm, making it a part of the Chaos Realm. And he was the master of the Chaos Realm. Only the stronger the 10,000 Kingdoms continent became, the more benefits he would obtain. Everyone obediently kneeled on the ground and listened to Yihao's teachings, because Yihao was an expert who had broken through this plane and was also the master of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent. In everyone's eyes, Yihao's words were even more valuable than an imperial edict. They were not willing to miss a single word that Yihao said. Listening to Yihao's words, everyone's desire to become stronger became stronger. Chapter 9:36. However, when they heard Yihao's words, they finally realized that the myriad kingdom continent was actually very small. Therefore, countless people were filled with yearning for the outside world. After all, if they could, who would be willing to be trapped in the myriad kingdom continent for the rest of their lives? If they wanted to go to the outside world, there was no other way but to become stronger. Therefore, at this moment, in the hearts of countless people, they wanted to become stronger. Rumble. At this moment, on the myriad kingdom continent, the martial power between heaven and earth began to tremble and rumble. Suddenly, In the originally bright sky, one could see a huge star slowly approaching the myriad kingdom continent. Why do I feel that the martial power in the air is actually increasing? I have the same feeling too. It seems that the closer the star is, the stronger the martial power in the air is. At this moment, countless people felt the gradually increasing martial power in the air and were discussing happily. When Yihao saw this scene, although his expression did not change, his heart was blooming with joy. Fortunately, he did not waste his breath. The myriad kingdom continent was indeed becoming stronger. Although Yihao did not know what kind of star was close to the myriad kingdom continent. However, he knew that the stronger the myriad kingdom continent became, the closer the star was to the myriad kingdom continent, and the stronger the martial power in the myriad kingdom continent would be. One must know that in the ancient demon domain, Yihao also saw a star that looked similar to this star. However, the star was very close to the ancient demon's realm. It was almost within reach. Yihao believed that if this star was as close to the myriad kingdom continent as the star in the ancient demon domain was, the myriad kingdom continent would probably be able to grow to be as powerful as the ancient demon domain. Seeing the crowd's desire to become stronger and the changes that were happening in the myriad kingdom continent, Yihao continued, "When the time comes, I will establish countless academies in the myriad kingdom continent. Every citizen will be able to cultivate, and the level of cultivation techniques will definitely not be the only level in the myriad kingdom continent." Since Yihao could establish an academy in the ancient demon domain, of course, in the myriad kingdom continent, his territory, he naturally could not be stingy. After all, this was the first plane that he had obtained, and it was extremely precious. Is this true? Doesn't that mean that we commoners can all cultivate? This is really great. I can also become a strong person. Haha. My wish since birth was to become a martial artist, but I was forced by life. Now, I finally have the chance to bring honor to my ancestors. After hearing Yihao's words, the entire myriad kingdom continent was in an uproar. One had to know that the myriad kingdom continent had a large population, but only 10% of them could become martial artists. As for those who were unable to become martial artists, that was the majority of the people in the myriad kingdom continent. Almost 90% of the people were unable to cultivate. Of course, some of it was related to talent, but most of it was because cultivation techniques and resources were too precious. If they weren't lucky enough to get rich or obtain good treasures, it would be very difficult for the commoners at the bottom to rise up. And Yihao's words undoubtedly gave them hope. Hope that they could become strong. After all, who didn't want to be ordinary? Who didn't want to stand out and live a life of their own? Therefore, Yihao's words made countless people look at Yihao with admiration and gratitude. I will treat all of you equally. As for how high you can grow, it will depend on you. I hope that one day, all of you can follow me and sweep through the universe. Yihao's words were like thunder, exploding in everyone's ears. When everyone thought that one day they would be able to follow behind Yihao and sweep through the universe, they immediately felt their blood boil. We will work hard to cultivate and follow His Majesty to sweep through the universe. We will work hard to cultivate and follow His Majesty to sweep through the universe. We will work hard to cultivate and follow His Majesty to sweep through the universe. At this moment, all the humans in the myriad kingdom continent were shouting in unison. And while everyone was shouting in unison, the planet in the sky was getting closer and closer to the myriad kingdom continent. And it was still moving. And on the myriad kingdom continent, the martial Tao power in the air was also constantly rising. Hearing everyone's shouts and feeling the constantly increasing martial Tao power in the air, Yihao was also extremely happy. According to this sign, it won't be difficult for this martial Tao power to catch up to the ancient demon domain. Yihao couldn't help but think as he looked at the constantly increasing martial Tao power. Although the myriad kingdom continent didn't have any stronger spiritual energy, but obviously it was impossible for a person to become a fatty in one bite. One couldn't start learning to run before learning to walk. If the density of martial Tao power in the Myriad Kingdom continent could really compare to the ancient demon domain, then the strongest person in the Myriad Kingdom continent could only reach the demon guard level in the ancient demon domain. Instead, it could grow to the demon emperor level. That would be a qualitative leap for the Myriad Kingdom continent. At the same time, it would also change the only realm system in the Myriad Kingdom continent. In less than a minute, the density of martial Tao power in the entire Myriad Kingdom continent had doubled. Many warriors who were unable to break through actually showed signs of loosening at this moment. Furthermore, there were also many martialists who had a breakthrough in their cultivation at this very moment. Even ordinary people who weren't warriors felt that their bodies were much stronger at this moment. Many ordinary people who had diseases were being nourished by the martial Tao power. Their diseases were slowly getting better, and some were even completely healed. There were also many old people who were about to die. At this moment, their faces were glowing and full of energy. Not to mention anything else, just everyone's lifespan was constantly increasing under the influence of martial Tao power. At this moment, feeling the changes in the Myriad Kingdom continent and their own changes, countless people's worship of Yi Hao reached its peak. At this moment, countless people had become Yi Hao's loyal believers. This time, I'm returning to the Myriad Kingdom continent. In addition to seeing all of you, I'm taking away 3 generals from the Yanlong Heavenly Kingdom and bestowing you with a great opportunity to follow me to the ancient demon domain to expand our territory. Looking at the countless people who were looking at him with fanatical gazes, Yi Hao continued to speak. Hearing Yi Hao's words, countless generals were so nervous that they held their breaths. To the ancient demon domain, a great opportunity to follow Yi Hao. No matter which one it was, the temptation was huge for them. At this moment, countless generals were looking at Yi Hao nervously and expectantly. Chapter 9:37. Where's Guan Yu? Yi Hao scanned the Myriad Kingdom continent and asked. Hearing Yi Hao calling him, Guan Yu was so excited that he froze. General, His Majesty is calling for you. The lieutenant beside Guan Yu quickly reminded him. Guan Yu quickly reacted and knelt on the ground. I, Guan Yu, will follow your Majesty's orders. I would like to bring you to the ancient demon realm to expand our territory. Are you willing? Yi Hao asked Guan Yu. Guan Yu was more than willing. So how could he not be willing? He quickly replied, I am willing to follow your Majesty's orders. I will go through hell and back. Of course, I will bestow you power now. Are you ready? Yi Hao nodded in satisfaction when he heard Guan Yu's words. I am willing, Guan Yu quickly replied, as if he was afraid that Yi Hao would regret his decision. Everyone heard that Yi Hao was not only going to bring Guan Yu to the ancient demon realm, but he was also going to bestow power to Guan Yu. Although no one knew what kind of power Yi Hao was going to bestow upon Guan Yu, many people were envious of him. At this moment, many people were looking forward to seeing how much power Yi Hao was going to bestow upon Guan Yu. System, I choose Guan Yu. Increase his strength first. Ding dong, selection successful. As long as the host's mirror image leaves the Myriad Kingdom continent, Guan Yu will follow the host back to the ancient demon realm. Ding dong, congratulations to the host. Guan Yu's cultivation has been successfully increased. His current cultivation is at Atman Body Level 1. At this moment, in the sky above the Myriad Kingdom continent, other than the Martial Path star, another star appeared. However, the distance between those stars was much greater than that of the Martial Path star. Even if the experts in the Myriad Kingdom continent looked at that star, they could only vaguely see the outline of the star. Compared to the Martial Tao Strength star that was close at hand, that star was simply pitifully small. Boom! At this moment, a trace of spiritual energy appeared above the Myriad Kingdom continent. At this moment, the sparse spiritual energy gathered together and poured into Guan Yu's body. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. At the same time, they were curious about the power of spiritual energy, because they had never seen spiritual energy before. They could feel the strangeness and strength of the spiritual power. This The Myriad Kingdom continent is actually starting to have spiritual energy. Seeing this, Yi Hao was stunned. He never expected that by a free combination of factors, he would be able to raise Guan Yu's cultivation and allow the Myriad Kingdom continent to possess spiritual energy so quickly. Although the spiritual energy in the Myriad Kingdom continent was still very little, it was at least much stronger than before. Therefore, in his opinion, the rise of the Myriad Kingdom continent was only a matter of time. What kind of power is this? Why do I feel that this power is stronger than my martial arts power? Guan Yu felt the completely changed power in his body. He felt that this power was very unfamiliar to him, but it was also very powerful. At the same time, he felt that his cultivation had also increased by countless times. Furthermore, it was not only his martial arts that had changed. He could feel that his dantian was also changing. Boom! All of a sudden, Guan Yu unleashed his power. Suddenly, countless people felt the strong spiritual energy fluctuations from Guan Yu's body. They were all suppressed and could not speak. At this moment, everyone looked at Guan Yu with shock and fear. Only they could feel that Guan Yu's power was simply too strong. They had a feeling that if Guan Yu wanted to kill them, they would not be able to fight back. Your Majesty, what kind of power is this? Why is it so strong? Guan Yu was both excited and curious as he looked at Yi Hao. This was because Guan Yu knew that Yi Hao was the one who could create this power. If he wanted to understand it, he could only do so through Yi Hao. This is the power above martial arts power, spiritual energy. Seeing the curious gazes of countless people, Yi Hao answered, "Spiritual energy?" Hearing Yi Hao's words, countless people memorized this unfamiliar term in their minds. Your Majesty, if we want to obtain spiritual energy, how do we do it? Feeling the spiritual energy from Guan Yu, countless people asked enviously. Only by breaking through the Demon Emperor realm can you comprehend spiritual energy. Only by reaching the Atman body realm can you completely convert your martial arts power into spiritual energy, turning your martial arts dantian into a spiritual palace and becoming a true spiritual practitioner. Yi Hao continued to answer. Demon Emperor? Atman body realm? Spiritual palace? Spiritual practitioner? Yi Hao's words had undoubtedly opened the door to countless new worlds. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but listen to Yi Hao attentively, afraid that they would miss out on any information. I was wondering why my martial arts dantian was different. So this is the spiritual palace. Guan Yu was enlightened when he heard Yi Hao's words. Doesn't that mean that I am now a spiritual practitioner? Guan Yu suddenly asked excitedly. That's right. Your cultivation is now at the Atman body realm level 1. You are now a true spiritual practitioner. Looking at the excited Guan Yu, Yi Hao nodded. Thank you, Your Majesty. After knowing that he had become a spiritual practitioner, Guan Yu immediately knelt down and thanked Yi Hao excitedly. One had to know that he felt that his current power was enough to kill any martial artist in an instant. At this moment, countless people were looking at Guan Yu enviously. After all, who didn't want to become stronger? Who didn't want to have spiritual energy that was above martial arts power? Who didn't want it? Who didn't want it? At the same time, countless people wanted to worship Yi Hao as if he was a god. After all, Yi Hao's real body had not appeared in the 10,000 Lands continent. Just by casting shadow, he could increase a person's cultivation. How powerful must he be to be able to do this? Seeing that Guan Yu had turned from a martial artist to a spiritual practitioner in an instant, and his power had increased countless times, many generals couldn't help but look at Yi Hao with anticipation. Because Yi Hao had said that he would bring 3 people to the ancient demon area. Now that Guan Yu had taken up one of the spots, it meant that there were still 2 spots left. Where is Zhao Yun? Yi Hao asked in a dignified voice, as if he was calling out soldiers on the battlefield. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Zhao Yun immediately walked out happily and knelt on the ground. Zhao Yun greets Your Majesty. I want to bring you to the ancient demon area. The ancient demon area is extremely dangerous, and your life could be in danger at any time. Even I am no exception. Are you willing to go? Hiss, upon hearing Yi Hao's words, countless people sucked in a breath of cold air. Yihao's power was obvious to all. In their hearts, Yihao was like a god. But with Yihao's cultivation, it was possible that his life could be in danger in the ancient demon area. They couldn't believe how powerful the ancient demon area was. Chapter 9:38. Well said. Only by becoming stronger can you laugh at the world. Otherwise, you won't even have the power to protect yourself. How can you talk about a comfortable life? Hearing Zhao Yun's words, Yihao also praised. System, I choose Zhao Yun for the second slot. First, I will increase Zhao Yun's strength. Ding dong. Selection successful. As long as the host's image leaves the myriad kingdom continent, Zhao Yun will follow the host back to the ancient demon domain. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host. Zhao Yun's cultivation has been successfully increased. His current cultivation is at the first level of the Atman body realm. At this moment, in the sky above the myriad kingdom continent, other than the star of the martial path, the star in the distance actually moved towards the myriad kingdom continent again. At the same time that the star moved, the spiritual energy on the myriad kingdom continent increased by a lot. As the star approached, Zhao Yun's cultivation also continued to rise. Although they had seen Guan Yu's continuous breakthroughs, they were still shocked to see Zhao Yun's continuous breakthroughs. Which cultivator didn't break through one small realm at a time? Who could be like Guan Yu and Zhao Yun, breaking through dozens of small realms in a row? This was simply a miracle. As Zhao Yun's cultivation reached the Demon Emperor realm, the spiritual energy around Zhao Yun also condensed and began to change Zhao Yun's strength. Countless people looked at Zhao Yun, unwilling to look away. It was as if they were afraid that they would miss something exciting. After all, they had never seen such a scene before. It was uncertain whether they would be able to see it in the future. At this moment, seeing Zhao Yun break through to become a spiritualist was a complete eye-opener for them. Haha, I have also become a spiritualist. This general thanks your majesty. Zhao Yun felt the brand new power in his body. Furthermore, Zhao Yun felt that the power in his body was countless times stronger than before. Zhao Yun couldn't help but be excited as he thanked Yihao gratefully. Seeing that Zhao Yun had also become a spiritualist, countless people looked at Zhao Yun with admiration. However, there were also supreme generals who were anxious at this moment. After all, there were a total of 3 slots. Now, 2 of them were gone and only 1 was left. Such a precious slot, of course. Every general wanted to obtain it. After all, obtaining this slot was equivalent to breaking through the cage of the myriad kingdom continent and stepping into a new world. Furthermore, they could also become stronger and follow Yihao to expand their territory and achieve unparalleled achievements. How could they not desire this? But despite their desire, Yihao also wanted to raise each and every one of them to the Atman body level. Yihao also wanted to bring everyone to the ancient demon territory to follow him to expand his territory. However, the system only gave him 3 slots, so Yihao could do nothing about it. As for the 3rd spot, he already had a choice. That was Ran Min, Heavenly King Ran. Where is Ran Min? Hearing Yihao's words, countless generals felt extremely disappointed. However, when they heard Ran Min's name, most of the generals felt relieved. After all, they had heard of Ran Min's name. Thinking about it carefully, the soldiers had no reason to object to the 3 people Yihao had chosen. They could not say that these 3 people were not worthy of the 3 spots. Because no matter if it was Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, or even Ran Min, among the generals of the Yanlong Celestial Empire, they were definitely the cream of the crop, the top 3 powerhouses. And Yihao had chosen these 3 people, so the generals were convinced. The only thing that made them disappointed was that Yihao did not choose them. After all, humans were not plants and could not be emotionless. Everyone had emotions and desires. Furthermore, this was to raise their cultivation and enter another plane. Such a great opportunity was placed in front of them, but they had no fate with it. How could they not be disappointed? If they really weren't disappointed, that would be the strangest thing. I am here. I am willing to follow my lord to conquer the ancient demon territory. Ran Min knelt on the ground and said. Seeing Ran Min like this, Yi Hao immediately said to the system to raise Ran Min's strength. As Ran Min's strength increased, the spiritual energy in the myriad kingdom continent became much denser. All right, all of you can go and do your own things. I hope that all of you will work hard to raise your cultivation. After choosing the 3 subordinates, Yi Hao said to all the people in the myriad kingdom continent, Farewell, your majesty. Long live his majesty. Hearing Yi Hao's words, everyone started to call out again. Yi Hao looked at the imperial city of Yanlong Heavenly Kingdom. He knew that his women and parents were all looking at him at this moment. But Yi Hao did not intend to greet them, because if he called out now, everyone would be very reluctant to part with him. Wait for me, Yi Hao said in a deep voice. Then, he ended the use of the sky-piercing mirror. In the imperial city of Yanlong Heavenly Kingdom, the women looked at the disappearing image of Yi Hao with eyes full of reluctance. In their minds, Yi Hao's words kept echoing. We will wait for you, the women said in unison. They also knew that Yi Hao did not want to meet with them because he was afraid that when they parted, he would be even more reluctant to part. However, is getting stronger and stronger. Looking at the disappearing image of Yi Hao, the imperial aunt said with a gratified expression. Yi Batian also nodded with gratification. Our son is indeed powerful. I just don't know if he has found the antidote. The imperial aunt frowned when she heard about the antidote. Because more than half a year had passed, the earth terminus black chi on the purple sky, supreme, God Emperor's body was getting worse and worse. If a solution could not be found within 4 to 5 months, the purple sky supreme God Emperor would probably die. I think Hao will find the antidote. The imperial aunt still chose to believe in Yi Hao and said firmly, I hope that Hao will always be safe and sound. Yi Batian said as he hugged the imperial aunt. Yi Hao separated his consciousness from the sky-piercing mirror. However, Yi Hao did not summon Guan Yu and the other 2 to the ancient demon's realm immediately. This was because Guan Yu and the other 2 were all people of high status in the Yanlong Heavenly Kingdom and had supreme authority. Yi Hao naturally had to give them time to deal with the matters at hand. Yi Hao looked at the cage formed by the demonic tree. With a thought from Yi Hao, the demonic tree immediately flipped open. The heavens and cliff looked extremely dispirited, as though he could not live anymore. Duan Tianyao looked at Yi Hao with rage in his eyes. Kill me if you can. I will kill you sooner or later. However, now is not the time. Come with me, Yi Hao said as he grabbed Duan Tianyao and rushed out of the hall. Duan Tianyao was like a little chick in Yi Hao's hand because his cultivation had been sealed by Sun Shangxiang. Chapter 9:39. Where are you taking me? Duan Tianyao was held in Yi Hao's hands. Duan Tianyao felt his heart ache when he saw the deathly stillness in the palace. I told you that I would destroy your broken kingdom in 10 days. Now, I'm fulfilling my promise. Yi Hao answered Duan Tianya's question. Nonsense. Duan Tianya still refused to believe that Yi Hao would be able to destroy his broken kingdom in 10 days. After all, his 10,000-strong army wasn't to be trifled with. Even if the 10,000-strong army stood there for Yi Hao to slaughter, it still wouldn't be possible for him to wipe them out in 10 days. However, the scene he saw below made his expression change drastically. At the same time, he was extremely puzzled. How is this possible? Why is my army surrendering? Under Yi Hao's lead, Duan Tianya kept passing by army after army. These armies were undoubtedly the Broken Kingdom's army. However, at this very moment, these armies weren't fighting. Instead, they were squatting on the ground barehanded. They were the captives of the Tianyuan Kingdom. Most importantly, these armies' weapons seemed to have been confiscated. Not a single soldier still had a weapon in their hands. How did it turn out like this? Duan Tianya wanted to rush over and grab a soldier to ask. However, he was held in Yi Hao's hands and couldn't ask. What kind of drug did you give them? Why are they surrendering? Duan Tianya suddenly looked at Yi Hao. In his opinion, this matter definitely had something to do with Yi Hao. However, this was a 10,000-strong army. He could accept the surrender of tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of soldiers. However, this 10,000-strong army was actually surrendering. This made him feel that it was extremely abnormal. He looked at the majestic and domineering flags that originally belonged to the Broken Kingdom. Now, all of them were replaced with the flags of the Tianyuan Kingdom. White flags were hung everywhere in the Broken Kingdom's barracks, representing their surrender. At this moment, there wasn't a single flag that belonged to the Broken Kingdom in all the barracks. When Duan Tianya saw this scene, he felt as if his heart was being sliced by a knife. His heart was constantly bleeding. When he saw this, Duan Tianya had a premonition that what Yi Hao had said was very likely true. That was to destroy Duan Kingdom within 10 days. After all, the Duan Kingdom's experts were all dead, and the royal family was annihilated. If this army of 10 million also surrendered, it would be impossible for the Duan Kingdom to survive. However, what he was most curious about and puzzled about was exactly what kind of bewitching potion Yi Hao had fed them to be able to make them all surrender. You'll know in a moment. In response to Heaven's End Cliff's confusion, he did not immediately answer. Seeing that Yi Hao did not say anything, the Heaven's End Cliff fell silent. He only wanted to know how Yi Hao had done it, so that he could die in peace. Nether Jade City was Tianyuan Kingdom's largest border city near Duan Kingdom. At this moment, Emperor Tianyuan lived here. Halt! Who are you? Yi Hao had just arrived at Nether Jade City with the Heaven's End Cliff when he was stopped by a group of guards. After all, the war had yet to end, and there were many spies from the various countries, so Nether Jade City's defenses were naturally very tight. This is His Highness, the third Prince Consort. At this moment, Sun Shangxiang's voice was heard. Greetings, Lord Sun. When the guards saw Sun Shangxiang appear, they quickly bowed. When the guards heard Yi Hao's identity, they quickly bowed and said, Greetings, Your Highness. May Your Highness live for thousands of years. Greetings, my lord. Sun Shangxiang also bowed at Yi Hao at the same time. Have you completed the task I gave you? Yi Hao nodded and asked when he saw Sun Shangxiang bow. Reporting to my lord, Shangxiang has completed the task you gave me. Good, bring me there. Yi Hao nodded. My lord, please follow me. Sun Shangxiang immediately led the way when he heard Yi Hao's words. Who was that in the third prince consort's hands? Why did he seem to be wearing a dragon robe when I looked at him? I heard that the third prince consort went to the Broken Kingdom's palace. Could that person be the Broken Kingdom's emperor? What? If that person is the Broken Kingdom's emperor, that prince consort is too powerful. This is nothing. Do you know that the Broken Kingdom's surrender this time was all thanks to the third prince consort? After Sun Shangxiang and Yi Hao left, the group of guards immediately began to discuss. Their tone was filled with admiration for Yi Hao. Your Majesty, the prince consort is back. In Emperor Tianyuan's temporary palace, a guard came to report. Cough, cough, cough. Where's the prince consort now? Emperor Tianyuan coughed violently a few times. His face was extremely pale as he asked. He seems to have followed Lord Sun to the training grounds. The guard quickly replied, Training grounds? Cough, cough, cough. Emperor Tianyuan coughed a few times. Prepare the carriage and head to cough, cough, the training grounds. At this moment, in Nether Jade City, there were close to 100 people standing in the huge training grounds. One must know that each of these people's identities were not ordinary. Every one of them controlled close to 100,000 troops. That's right, everyone present was the Broken Kingdom's Legion commander. I wonder why Lord Expert has called us here. From Lord Expert's words, it seems like he has an important announcement. Important announcement? What's more important than our surrender? I wonder, now that we've surrendered, when can we withdraw our troops and return to the capital? At this moment, the close to 100 people present were all discussing. Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of orderly footsteps could be heard. Under Huang Zhong's lead, an army of close to 10,000 had completely surrounded the entire training field. What are they doing? What's the meaning of this? The Broken Kingdom's Legion commanders couldn't help but look around nervously. Suddenly, a clamor sounded. Everyone quiet down. Hearing the clamor of more than 100 legion commanders, Huang Zhong immediately released his cultivation and sternly shouted, "His so strong." Everyone felt Huang Zhong's cultivation aura and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as they looked at Huang Zhong with fear. As the crowd quieted down, Yi Hao's sudden appearance instantly attracted everyone's attention. To be exact, it wasn't Yi Hao who attracted everyone's attention. It was the heaven's end cliff in Yi Hao's hands that attracted everyone's attention. Seeing the heaven's end cliff in Yi Hao's hands, the more than 100 legion commanders instantly boiled over. They all looked at the heaven's end cliff in disbelief and anxiously asked, "His Majesty? Why is His Majesty here? That bold boy, quickly release His Majesty." Chapter 940. You traitors, why did you betray me? Duantinya glared at them and roared. From Duantinya's point of view, these commanders had betrayed him. As for the other legion commanders, when they heard the words of the heavens end cliff, they were all stunned, their faces filled with puzzlement. It was Duantinya who had given them the imperial edict to surrender. Why was Duantinya saying this now? Your Majesty, you were the one who gave the order for us to surrender? Why are you saying this now? One of the commanders looked at Duantinya and asked in confusion, "Nonsense! When did I give such an order?" Duantinya shouted angrily. The commanders looked at each other in confusion. Your Majesty, weren't you the one who asked Lord Sun to take the imperial edict and your identity token and ask us to surrender? That's right, Your Majesty. All of us surrendered when we saw your edict. Lord Sun is right here. You can ask Lord Sun if you don't believe me. That's right, the imperial edict is still in Lord Sun's hands. We all saw it with our own eyes. The group of ministers quickly said, Lord Sun? Which Lord Sun? Duantinya frowned when he saw the ministers speaking. They did not seem to be lying. It's me. Under Duantinya's confused gaze, Sun Shangxiang walked out. What do you mean by you? Duantinya was shocked when he saw Sun Shangxiang. Shangxiang, make him understand what is going on. Yi Hao looked at Sun Shangxiang and ordered. Upon receiving Yi Hao's order, Sun Shangxiang took out the imperial edict and a token. Seeing Sun Shangxiang take out the items, Duantinya immediately snatched them away. Looking at the words on the imperial edict, Duantinya suddenly understood. He raised his head and looked at Yi Hao. It's you. Duanya, how's my imitation? Seeing Duantinya's angry look, Yi Hao smiled. You. Duantinya angrily held the imperial edict and pointed it at Yi Hao. Suddenly, blood rushed to his head and he spat out a mouthful of blood. What does this mean? Could it be that the imperial edict is fake? What? Doesn't that mean that we have all been deceived? I knew it. His Majesty would not give such an order. Hearing Yi Hao and Duanya's conversation, the 100 over legion commanders started to discuss. Their faces faces anger. Protect His Majesty, lead His Majesty out. His Majesty, let's go. Let's attack. After Duantinya, legion. How dare you? Of Duanya makes of there, there, of there, of the, of there, of there, of them, make yazizya. Many people saw that Huang Zhong was enraged and immediately quieted down. Duan Devilya, you of Ufsiya. There were more than 100 legion commanders present, and their cultivation bases were still at the demon venerable level. They were definitely not Huang Zhong's match. Thus, many people were filled with fear toward Huang Zhong. Sigh, there's no need for that. Yi Hao waved his hand at Huang Zhong. Since so many commanders don't want to stay here, then let them leave. My lord, this? Hearing Yi Hao's words, Huang Zhong was afraid that he had misheard. After receiving Yi Hao's signal, Huang Zhong immediately nodded and waved his hand. Move aside. Hearing Huang Zhong's order, more than 10,000 guards immediately opened up a path. You're really letting us go? There can't be a trap, right? Since you've released us, shouldn't you release His Majesty as well? Many of the legion commanders asked in disbelief when they saw the path being cleared. Their faces were filled with vigilance and suspicion. If Duan Huang wants to leave, then let's go. Yi Hao let go of Duan Huang without any hesitation. Your Majesty, please leave with us. Your Majesty, let us escort you back. Your Majesty. Many of them saw that Yi Hao had really let go of Duan Yi and hurriedly spoke up in excitement. Duan Yi turned to look at Yi Hao. Seeing the smile on Yi Hao's face, he couldn't help but say, "Sigh, I didn't expect you to be so scheming at such a young age." Your Majesty, let's go. Many of the Legion commanders hurriedly urged. You don't have to care about me. Leave on your own. I hope you can leave. Duan Yi waved his hand. Your Majesty, there's no need to say more. Let's go. Without waiting for the Legion commanders to finish speaking, Duan Yi spoke up. Let's go. Your Majesty, we will lead the army to escort you back. Your Majesty, we promise. Many of the Legion commanders immediately turned and left after saying their piece. More than half of the Legion commanders present left quickly. Duan Huang, I asked you to leave. Why didn't you leave? This might be your only chance to leave. Yi Hao couldn't help but ask Duan Yi. Ha ha ha. Duan Yi immediately looked up and laughed. Do you really think I'm stupid? Would you let them go? You wouldn't even let them go. Why would you let me go? Ha ha. You're indeed Duan Huang. Yi Hao couldn't help but praise. Following which, Yi Hao looked at the remaining Legion commanders. Why didn't you leave? Almost half of the remaining Legion commanders were present. When everyone heard Yi Hao's question, many of them began to look at each other. I want to seek refuge with Sir. One of the Legion commanders immediately knelt down and said, Why? Yi Hao couldn't help but ask with a smile. Because in the ancient demon domain, the strong are respected. The fact that Sir could bring us here is enough to prove Sir's ability. Moreover, since Sir could bring His Majesty here, I reckon that the demon emperor of Duan Kingdom should have perished. A wise man submits to circumstances. Since the demon emperor of Duan Kingdom is dead, it's only a matter of time before Duan Kingdom is destroyed. In order to save my life and find a way out, I can only seek refuge with Sir. The Legion commander looked at Yi Hao with a nervous expression and said slowly, Clap, clap, clap. Ha, well said. You're indeed smart. Yi Hao clapped his hands and said with a smile, I like smart people. When he heard Yi Hao's words, the Legion commander's face lit up. When he saw Yi Hao walking towards him, the Legion commander was very nervous. He knew that as long as he hugged Yi Hao's thigh, he would be able to hold on to his life. Plop. However, just as Yi Hao walked to his side, a sword appeared in his hand at an unknown time. Then, the sword directly pierced through his chest. Why? He looked at Yi Hao in disbelief. He didn't understand why Yi Hao still wanted to kill him when he had already said that he was smart. I like smart people, but that doesn't mean that I like fence-sitters. Since you can betray Duan Huang, you will also betray me. Yi Hao pulled out his long sword and swept his cold gaze across the remaining Legion commanders. Chapter 941. Temperamental. This was the evaluation of Yi Hao in the hearts of the remaining Legion commanders. What kind of person was the most feared? Naturally, it was a temperamental person, because a temperamental person would make you unable to understand his thoughts. Whatever you did, you had to be careful. If you were not careful, your life could be in danger. Clatter. Just as everyone was wondering what to do, a series of footsteps was heard. His Majesty has arrived. A eunuch's shout was heard. Emperor Tianyuan was seen walking over with the help of two eunuchs. After seeing Emperor Tianyuan, everyone bowed slightly. However, Yi Hao frowned because he realized that Emperor Tianyuan's health was not looking good. Your health. Yi Hao frowned and looked at Emperor Tianyuan with concern. Cough, cough. It's fine. Emperor Tianyuan waved his hand. Emperor Tianyuan's gaze fell on Duantian Cliff. Then he was shocked and delighted. Isn't this Duantian King? If it was Emperor Tianyuan, the person he did not want to see the most in his life, but also the person he wanted to see the most was Duantian Cliff. This sounded very contradictory, but it made sense. Why did Emperor Tianyuan not want to see Duantian Cliff? That was because Emperor Tianyuan had only seen Duantian Cliff 3 times since his ascension to the throne. And every time he saw Duantian Cliff, he had to bow. To him, this was a great humiliation. After all, if the two countries were equal in strength, why would the two monarchs need to bow? Therefore, only the weak would bow to the strong. And because Tianyuan Kingdom's strength was weaker than Duantian Kingdom, Emperor Tianyuan had to bow to Duantian Cliff. However, in the past, Duantian Kingdom was only a subordinate country of Tianyuan. In the past, when the Duantian king met the Tianyuan king, he had to bow to him. But now, Tianyuan Kingdom had become so weak, it made him feel very helpless. Furthermore, the 3 times they had met, it was fine if he had to bow. After all, it was for the sake of the country, so a little humiliation was nothing. He could grit his teeth and get over it. However, every time they met, they would have to cut off the kingdom and divide a large amount of land and resources as compensation. But each time, it was Duan Kingdom who started the fight. However, the Tianyuan Kingdom was weak. If they did not do so, the losses they would suffer would be even greater. However, this also made him think that a trip to the Broken Kingdom would cause the Tianyuan Kingdom to lose a portion of its territory. Therefore, this left a shadow in his heart about going to the Broken Kingdom. Therefore, the last thing he wanted to see was the Heaven's End Cliff. Of course, he also had another wish. That was to meet the Heaven's End Cliff and have the Heaven's End Cliff salute him and return all the land that he had plundered from the Tianyuan Kingdom. However, in his opinion, both of them were incomparably difficult. Heaven's End Cliff had always been eyeing Tianyuan like a tiger eyeing its prey. How could they not be tempted by the Tianyuan Kingdom? After all, humans were always greedy. Who would complain that their country was too big? As for wanting the Heaven's End Cliff to bow to him and return his homeland, that was just his fantasy. Because in the ancient demon domain, strength was capital. Naturally, it was the same for a country. If the Heaven's End Cliff wanted to do so, unless the strength of the Tianyuan Kingdom was comparable to that of the Broken Kingdom. However, the previous Tianyuan Kingdom's strength was declining day by day. Moreover, the civil and military officials in the kingdom all had their own thoughts. On the other hand, the Broken Kingdom was getting stronger day by day. If there were no accidents, the Tianyuan Kingdom would be swallowed up by the Broken Kingdom sooner or later. Therefore, this time, Emperor Tianyuan chose to take the risk and start a war with the Heaven's End Cliff, because he knew in his heart that the Tianyuan Kingdom could no longer afford to pay. If they continued to pay, the Tianyuan Kingdom would be at the mercy of others and would be swallowed up by the Heaven's End Cliff sooner or later. Rather than that, he might as well fight it out with the Heaven's End Cliff. However, he had never expected that this fight to the death would be won because of Yi Hao. And at this moment, the Heaven's End Cliff was standing in front of him in a very sorry state. Wasn't this just like his fantasy? You won. The Heaven's End Cliff was very unwilling to look at Emperor Tianyuan, but he still opened his mouth to say this sentence. Cough, cough. The one who won is not me, but my son-in-law. Emperor Tianyuan coughed twice, and with a happy expression, his gaze fell on Yi Hao. Son-in-law? Is he really the son-in-law of the Tianyuan Kingdom? Who is he? Hearing Emperor Tianyuan's words, the Heaven's End Cliff could not help but ask curiously. This was because the Heaven's End Cliff understood that the reason why he had lost this time, and lost so thoroughly and in such a mess, was all because of Yi Hao. If it were not for Yi Hao, he might have already defeated the Tianyuan Kingdom and taken over the entire Tianyuan Kingdom as his own territory. Therefore, he was very curious about where Yi Hao had come from, and why he had such strong people as Huang Zhong and Sun Shangxiang as his subordinates. If it was really because Yi Hao was Emperor Tianyuan's son-in-law, then Emperor Tianyuan's luck was really too good. He had used a daughter in exchange for such a strong assistant, allowing the Tianyuan Kingdom to escape from death and turn defeat into victory. If he could give him such a strong son-in-law, not to mention one daughter, he would even give him 10 daughters. Of course, not only is he the son-in-law of the Tianyuan Kingdom, he will also be the heir to the throne of the Tianyuan Kingdom. Emperor Tianyuan said proudly. After all, he knew that the reason he could speak to the Heaven's End Cliff in this manner was all because of Yi Hao. If it were not for Yi Hao, perhaps the Tianyuan kingdom would have been destroyed by now. He might have become a prisoner of the heavens in cliff and suffered endless humiliation. But because of Yi Hao, everything was reversed. He could speak to the heavens in cliff confidently. He could even use humiliating words to humiliate the heavens and cliff. All of this was because of Yi Hao. Therefore, he could not help but secretly rejoice that he had taken Yi Hao as his son-in-law, gave the Tianyuan kingdom to Yi Hao, and tied Yi Hao to his ship. How right was that? Because such an enemy was really terrifying. He did not dare to imagine what would happen to the Tianyuan kingdom if he and Yi Hao became enemies. After all, the Heaven's End Cliff was so powerful, with 8 demon lords and tens of millions of soldiers. But even the Heaven's End Cliff was defeated like this. If the Tianyuan kingdom became enemies with Yi Hao, how good would the outcome be? What did you say? Give the Tianyuan kingdom to him. Hearing Emperor Tianyuan's words, the Heaven's End Cliff's expression changed, and his tone was full of shock. He could not understand how generous Emperor Tianyuan was. He was actually willing to give such a huge kingdom to Yi Hao. If this happened to him, he would definitely not be able to do it, because he said that it was impossible for him to bear to do so. You are really crazy. Heaven's End Cliff shook his head repeatedly, unwilling to believe that Emperor Tianyuan would give the Tianyuan kingdom to Yi Hao. Chapter 942. In Duan Tianya's opinion, apart from the fact that Yi Hao was Emperor Tianyuan's illegitimate son, he really couldn't think of any other reason why Emperor Tianyuan would be so generous. However, if Yi Hao was Emperor Tianyuan's illegitimate son, then Emperor Tianyuan's scheming mind was simply too terrifying. Everyone must have thought that Emperor Tianyuan only had one son and that he had died prematurely. The remaining 3 daughters were destined to destroy the Tianyuan kingdom sooner or later. However, if Yi Hao was Emperor Tianyuan's illegitimate son, then it could only mean that Emperor Tianyuan had simply hidden it too well. Haha, Emperor Duan, you are overthinking things. Emperor Tianyuan immediately shook his head in response to Duan Tianya's guess. Could you really bear to give the Tianyuan kingdom to an outsider? Duan Tianya asked in disbelief. You don't have to worry about that. You should think about your Duan kingdom. Emperor Tianyuan couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with Duan Tianya over this issue. Duan Tianya was momentarily speechless when he heard Emperor Tianyuan's words. That's right. His Duan kingdom was about to be destroyed. What right did he have to care about the Tianyuan kingdom? Regardless of what happened to the Tianyuan kingdom was the victor in this war between the 2 kingdoms. My lord, do you really not need me to send people after them? Huang Zhong couldn't help but ask after some time had passed. After all, there were 40 to 50 legion commanders who had just left. Furthermore, all of them had the cultivation of a demon supremacy. If they really let these people go, then they would definitely become a disaster in the future. There's no need. It should be about time, Yi Hao said with a wave of his hand. About time? Huang Zhong looked puzzled when he heard Yi Hao's words. Sun Shangxiang also looked at Yi Hao in confusion. What? You let them go? Emperor Tianyuan naturally knew that Sun Shangxiang had brought all the army commanders of the Broken Kingdom here. At this moment, when he saw that the number of commanders had decreased significantly, he asked Yi Hao worriedly. Just as Yi Hao was about to answer Emperor Tianyuan, a guard suddenly shouted, "Stop right there. The 3 of us would like to see my lord. Please inform him." Guan Yu said, "Let them come over." Before the guard could say anything, Yi Hao spoke. Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, and Ran Min walked over and bowed to Yi Hao. "Greetings, my lord. How is it?" Yi Hao looked at the 3 of them and asked, "We have completed the task given by my lord. Please take a look, my lord." Guan Yu waved his hand, and 40 to 50 corpses appeared on the ground. Seeing these 40 to 50 corpses, the remaining army commanders of the Broken Kingdom all took a few steps back in fear, their faces filled with shock and fear. These 40 to 50 corpses were none other than the army commanders who had just left. At this moment, all of them had appeared here. Looking at these 40 to 50 corpses, They were basically all killed in one blow. Everyone couldn't help but look at Guan Yu and the other two in fear. What are their cultivations? Heavens, look at the neat wounds on their bodies. They were completely dead without any strength to fight back. To be able to kill so many people in such a short period of time, could these three also be demon emperors? These three are also your subordinates? Even Emperor Tianyuan couldn't help but look at Guan Yu and the other two in shock. Then he asked Yi Hao. As the emperor, he naturally knew that to become an army commander, one must have the strength of a demon emperor. And to be able to kill so many demon emperors in such a short period of time, one must at least have the cultivation of a demon emperor. He originally thought that Yi Hao only had two demon emperors under him, Huang Zhong and Sun Shangxiang. But at this moment, three demon emperors suddenly appeared. How could he not be shocked? Seeing Emperor Tianyuan's shocked expression, Yi Hao also nodded. As for Guan Yu and the other two, he had already summoned them to the ancient demon domain when he arrived at Nether Jade City. The moment they arrived at the ancient demon domain, Yi Hao gave the three of them an order. That was to guard outside Nether Jade City. As long as they saw the army commanders of the Broken Kingdom leave, they would kill them without any hesitation. The combined strength of these 40 to 50 demon sovereigns was indeed terrifying. Even if three demon emperors were to attack, it would be impossible for them to easily kill these people. But the cultivation of Guan Yu and the other two weren't demon emperors. They were Atman body realm cultivators. As a spiritualist, it would be easy for him to kill these martial artists. When Sun Shangxiang and Huang Zhong saw Guan Yu and the other two appear, they looked at Guan Yu and the other two with a solemn expression. They had thought that the two of them were Yi Hao's strongest subordinates. But now, looking at Guan Yu and the other two, they felt that Guan Yu and the other two's cultivation wasn't any weaker than theirs. I want to know what their cultivation is. Are they also 10th Order Demon Emperors? Emperor Tianyuan made a bold guess. Hearing Emperor Tianyuan's words, everyone's gaze fell on Yi Hao. They were extremely curious about Guan Yu and the other two's cultivation. Make a guess. Do you think their cultivation has reached the 10th Order Demon Emperor realm? I think it's possible to kill 40 to 50 Demon Emperors in a short period of time. Even if they aren't Demon Emperors, they are close. Many people present couldn't help but talk about Guan Yu and the other two's strength. At the same time, there were many people who looked at Yi Hao in shock. After all, anyone could see that Guan Yu and the other two were Yi Hao subordinates. But Yi Hao was so young, and yet he had so many demon emperors under his command. How could they not be shocked? Their cultivation is First Order Atman body realm. In order to shock everyone, Yi Hao answered truthfully. In order to control the Broken Kingdom's army, he couldn't kill all the captains. He had to kill a portion of them and leave the rest alive to make an example out of them. Obviously, they were already frightened. Therefore, he had to use his absolute strength to scare them. That way, they wouldn't dare to mess around in the future and listen to his orders. What? First Order Atman body realm? Doesn't that mean that the three of them are spiritualists? Hearing Yi Hao's words, everyone jumped in shock, because everyone knew how difficult it was to enter the Atman body realm. How difficult was it to become a spiritualist? It could be said that the Demon Emperor realm was a realm that everyone feared, but they also yearned to reach. But for most people, the Atman body realm was an existence that they could only dream of. One had to know that even in the Tianyuan Kingdom and Broken Kingdom, there had never been an Atman body realm expert. But now, not only did an Atman body realm expert appear, but 3 Atman body realm experts appeared at the same time. How could they not be shocked? Chapter 943. Broken Emperor, are you convinced? Yi Hao ignored everyone's shock and looked at Duantianya. I am convinced. Duantianya looked at Guan Yu and the other 2 who were kneeling on the ground. Not to mention others, just these 3 people were enough to destroy the Broken Kingdom. Just the 3 of them were not people that Broken Kingdom could deal with. Kill me. Duantianya closed his eyes and looked as if he had nothing left to live for. After all, his family was dead and his kingdom was destroyed. When he saw that Yi Hao had 3 more Atman body realm experts under him, he felt even more hopeless. Guan Yu's corpse is intact. Yi Hao said indifferently. Yes, your majesty. Guan Yu suddenly stood up, and the green dragon crescent blade appeared in his hand. Duan Tianye's entire body fell backward. There was no trace of blood, but if one looked closely, one could see that there was a small wound on Duan Tianye's neck. This is so strong. When everyone saw Guan Yu's attack, they could not help but suck in a breath of cold air, because many of them did not see how Guan Yu attacked. They only saw a trace of Duan Tianye's attack. He is really a spiritualist. This spiritualist is too strong. At this moment, everyone was sure that what Yi Hao said was true. Guan Yu and the other 2 were really spiritualists. Do you all submit or choose to die? After seeing Duan Tianye's death, Yi Hao looked at the remaining Legion commanders. Hearing Yi Hao's words and seeing Yi Hao's sharp gaze, the Legion commanders did not dare to look directly at him. But no one dared to speak first. After all, they had the foresight to see that the Legion commander who was killed by Yi Hao was still lying on the ground. Who knew if their choice would be in line with Yi Hao's intentions? If they didn't, wouldn't their lives be in danger? The Lord is asking you all a question. Looking at the Legion commanders who were hesitating, Huang Zhong shouted, "How can we submit? Can we keep our lives?" One of the captains couldn't take it anymore and directly knelt on the ground. One must know that this was a commander of 100,000 soldiers. For him to be forced into such a state at this moment, how much pressure must he be under? That will depend on your expressions in the future. If I'm satisfied, I'll promote you to nobility. If I'm not, I'll execute your entire family. Yi Hao said coldly. Yi Hao wanted these generals who had surrendered from other countries to fear him. Only by making them fear him would they be obedient. Even if he had second thoughts in the future, he would have to consider it carefully, because these people couldn't be killed in front of him. After all, the Broken Kingdom's army of millions still needed to be controlled. It would be much easier to take control of the Broken Kingdom's army after taking control of these captains. Of course, if these people had any ulterior motives, Yi Hao would not hold back. We are willing to submit to you. We will be loyal to you, my lord. When they heard what Yi Hao said, all the commanders immediately knelt on the ground. Where is Guan Yu? Yi Hao suddenly asked. This general is here. When he heard Yi Hao's words, Guan Yu immediately knelt on the ground. I order you to choose 10 captains to control the Broken Kingdom's 2 million soldiers. Do you have any objections? Yi Hao looked at Guan Yu and asked. I have no objections. Guan Yu's face was filled with excitement as he quickly said. As a general, fighting on the battlefield was something that he wanted to do in his bones. He didn't expect that he would be dealt such a heavy blow by Yi Hao as soon as he came to the ancient demon realm from the Myriad Kingdom continent. He actually controlled 2 million soldiers as soon as he arrived. He originally thought that he would have to start all over again after coming to the ancient demon realm. He didn't expect that there would be a pleasant surprise. Zhao Yun and Ran Min were looking at Guan Yu with envy. Sun Shangxiang and Huang Zhong were the same. Start choosing, Yi Hao said to Guan Yu. When he heard Yi Hao's order, Guan Yu immediately stood up and looked at the 40 to 50 captains. The 40 to 50 captains revealed a look of nervousness and anticipation. After all, in the ancient demon realm, the strong were respected. Who wouldn't be looking forward to becoming the subordinate of a spiritual practitioner at this moment? After all, if they were to become Guan Yu's subordinate, they would already have a cultivation base. With a little guidance, their cultivation base might improve greatly. Moreover, if they could follow Guan Yu, it would be much easier for them to fight on the battlefield in the future. On the battlefield, the easier it was, the more glory they would obtain. This was naturally what everyone was looking forward to. Moreover, they had seen Guan Yu's strength just now. In their opinion, it would be their honor to be able to become Guan Yu's subordinate. Let me tell you first, it's not so easy to be under my command. If you do anything that deceives your superiors and disregards the law, I will not be polite. One had to know that in the Myriad Kingdom continent, Guan Yu had suffered a lot because of his arrogant personality. Therefore, the current Guan Yu was much more mature and steady than before. At this moment, Guan Yu was explaining the rules to the other captains. The 40 to 50 captains were all focused on Guan Yu with a serious expression. "The 10 of you, are you willing to follow me and fight for the Lord to expand our territory?" Guan Yu suddenly pointed at the 10 captains and shouted, "We are willing to follow the general and fight for the Lord to expand our territory." When the 10 captains saw that Guan Yu had chosen them, they were all excited. Especially when they heard Guan Yu's words, they couldn't help but feel their blood boil as they shouted in unison, "My lord, I am done with my selection." Guan Yu hurriedly reported to Yi Hao respectfully after he had made his selection. Yi Hao nodded and looked at Guan Yu with satisfaction. He also realized that Guan Yu was much more steady than when he first came out of the Myriad Kingdom continent. This was naturally something that he was very willing to see. After all, if a person was too arrogant, he would definitely be at a disadvantage on the battlefield. "Where is Zhao Yun?" Yi Hao looked at Zhao Yun and shouted, "I'm here." Zhao Yun quickly kneeled and saluted. "You also choose 10 captains to command 2 million soldiers. Do you have any objections?" "I don't have any objections." When he heard Yi Hao's question, Zhao Yun quickly said, "Where is Ranmin?" "I'm here." "You too. Do you have any objections?" "I'll follow the Lord's orders." "Good, the 2 of you go and choose." Yi Hao nodded and ordered the 2 captains. Looking at Zhao Yun and Ranmin, the remaining 40 captains became even more nervous. After all, Zhao Yun and Ranmin only chose 20 captains. There were a total of 3 captains. Now that Guan Yu had finished choosing, if Zhao Yun and Ranmin also finished choosing, they would be left with 20 captains. Chapter 944. Soon, Zhao Yun and Ranmin chose 10 people each. The 20 people all had excited smiles on their faces. As for the remaining 20 people, they were worried about their own lives and future. After all, the 30 people who were chosen by Guan Yu and the other 2 were at least safe. Moreover, if they could follow an Atman body realm expert, their future would be limitless. But whether they stayed or left was a problem. The remaining 20 people looked at Yi Hao nervously. After all, their fates were in Yi Hao's hands. Yi Hao thought for a while and said, "Where's Huang Zhong?" "This general is here." Huang Zhong quickly knelt and bowed respectfully. "I order you to choose 10 people to lead the 2 million troops. Do you have any objections?" Yi Hao looked at Huang Zhong and said, "I have no objections." Huang Zhong suppressed the excitement in his heart. In fact, Huang Zhong was also a little surprised. He thought that Yi Hao wouldn't let him lead the army. After all, Yi Hao chose Guan Yu and the other 2 first. Moreover, Guan Yu and the other 2's cultivation was higher than his. Therefore, when he heard that Yi Hao wanted him to lead the 2 million troops, he was naturally excited. Just as Huang Zhong was about to stand up and challenge the 10 captains, Yi Hao suddenly stopped Huang Zhong. "Wait, my lord, do you have any other orders?" Hearing Yi Hao stop, Huang Zhong looked at Yi Hao in confusion. "If you want to lead the 2 million troops, your current cultivation is still a little low." Yi Hao looked at Huang Zhong's cultivation and said. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Huang Zhong was stunned. He couldn't help but think nervously. "Is my lord going back on his words?" Huang Zhong quickly said, "My lord, this general will work hard to cultivate and reach the Atman body realm as soon as possible." Who didn't want to lead the 3 armies? Huang Zhong naturally didn't want to. This opportunity that had already been in his hands disappeared without a trace. Therefore, Huang Zhong could only hurriedly guarantee that Yi Hao would not change his mind. "That's not what I mean." Seeing that Huang Zhong had misunderstood, Yi Hao took out a pill and said, "On account of your hard work in completing the missions these days, I'll give you this pill as a reward." Everyone looked at the pill in Yi Hao's hand. They were all curious about what kind of pill it was. Only Sun Shangxiang felt a sense of familiarity when he looked at the pill. Sun Shangxiang immediately recognized it. Wasn't this the pill that Yi Hao had given her in the Duan Kingdom's main hall? She was all too familiar with the might of this medicinal pill. Originally, he was also a 10th Order Demon Emperor, but with the help of Yi Hao's medicinal pellet, he had directly jumped to the First Order Atman body realm. Therefore, In his opinion, as long as Huang Zhong took this pill, his cultivation would definitely rise to the first order Atman body realm. Huang Zhong was also curious as he looked at the pill that Yi Hao handed over. Although he didn't know what kind of pill it was, Huang Zhong still took it. You can consume it right here. Seeing Huang Zhong holding the pill in his hands, Yi Hao said, "You can consume it right here, as you wish." Huang Zhong received Yi Hao's order and swallowed the pill without hesitation. As soon as Huang Zhong swallowed the pill, his face changed and revealed a look of excitement, because Huang Zhong also felt that the power in his body was changing. Everyone looked at Huang Zhong in confusion. They didn't understand what kind of pill Huang Zhong had eaten. A dignified 10th Order Demon Emperor Realm Master actually revealed an excited expression just because he had swallowed a pill. Of course, everyone was curious as to what kind of pill Huang Zhong had eaten. Why is the energy in the air changing? Isn't that spiritual energy? How is this possible? Why is there suddenly so much spiritual energy? The Legion commanders looked at the changes in front of them curiously. They saw that the martial power was pushed to the side, and the spiritual energy was constantly rushing towards Huang Zhong's body. He's about to break through. Guan Yu looked at Huang Zhong in shock. He had broken through to the first Order Atman body realm and became a martial artist. Naturally, he could see that Huang Zhong was breaking through to the first Order Atman body realm. However, he couldn't help but be shocked. Yi Hao's methods were really endless. Previously, in the Myriad Kingdom continent, he was able to raise their cultivation to the Atman body realm, which had completely shocked them. And now, Yi Hao had taken out a pill to help Huang Zhong break through. But then, they remembered that when Yi Hao helped them break through to the Atman body realm, he didn't take any pills. Therefore, when they saw Huang Zhong taking a pill to break through, they felt relieved. Boom! Suddenly, the aura around Huang Zhong's body surged and became stronger. I actually broke through to the first Order Atman body realm. Huang Zhong felt the new energy in his body. He could not help but feel excited at the boundless might that he was currently giving off. What? He broke through just like that? Is it because of that pill just now? What kind of pill is that? It's too terrifying. Who knew that becoming a spiritualist was something that could only be chanced upon? But now, it's so easy to break through. What kind of pill is that? Seeing that Huang Zhong had broken through, except for Guan Yu's group and Sun Shangxiang, the rest of the people were in an uproar, because using a single medicinal pellet to help a 10th Order Demon Emperor break through to the first Order Atman body realm was too terrifying. This was completely shocking to their hearts. Then, everyone looked at Yi Hao with burning passion in their eyes. Because if Yi Hao could give them a few pills, wouldn't they be able to increase their strength quickly? Even if they couldn't break through to the Atman body realm, as long as they could break through to the Demon Emperor realm, they would be satisfied. This general thanks the Lord. Huang Zhong calmed down the excitement in his heart and quickly thanked Yi Hao. No need to thank me. What I want is merit points. Yi Hao looked at Huang Zhong and said indifferently. Huang Zhong nodded repeatedly. This subordinate understands. What kind of pill is that? Could it be a divine pill? Seeing that Huang Zhong's cultivation had broken through to the first Order Atman body realm from the 10th Order Demon Emperor realm because of a single pill, everyone was shocked. Even Emperor Tianyuan was shocked at this moment. Kill. Save the first princess and second princess. At this time, the Heaven Origin Imperial City was already in a mess. All the ministers saw that Zhao Ling had been ignoring them, and their patience was gradually wearing out. Many of them were driven to desperation and actually started a mutiny. Logically speaking, these ministers didn't have any troops in their hands. On the other hand, Zhao Ling had 50,000 Imperial City soldiers in his hands. But these ministers actually sent out their own troops, and the total number was more than 200,000. Even Zhao Ling couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he heard this number. Chapter 945. Of course, The number of soldiers under each minister's command was different according to their official position. But who would have thought that there would be so many soldiers under normal circumstances? At a time like this, the number of prefecture soldiers was actually so great. Although the soldiers had not undergone formal training and were not as good as the regular army, but there were so many of them. Under the leadership of these ministers, the Tianyuan royal city was in danger. The 50,000 soldiers could only bitterly resist the attack of the soldiers. Preposterous! Are these officials thinking of rebelling? Zhao Ling was furious at the moment. She thought that the ministers were forcing her to release the eldest and second princesses. She only needed to hide from them before Yi Hao returned. But she never expected that these ministers would be so desperate and lead the soldiers to attack the royal city. Family heads, do you all have any suggestions? At that moment, Zhao Ling could only look to the family heads, because there was no one by her side that she could use. The family heads had already arrived at the royal palace after receiving Zhao Ling's request for help. Of course, Zhao Ling was only worried that the ministers would act rashly, but she never thought that these ministers would really rebel. When the family heads heard the battle cries coming from outside, they all looked serious. Your Highness, in my opinion, we should retreat from the royal palace first, Family head Wang said after thinking for a moment. The royal palace is an important place. How can we give it to those traitors? Zhao Ling frowned when she heard family head Wang's words. Your Highness, it's impossible for us to resist the soldiers with our 50,000 soldiers. Even if we fight with our lives, we will lose in the end. It's not worth it. What we should do now is to maintain our strength and wait for the Lord to return. Those people are destined to be grasshoppers after autumn. They won't be able to jump around for more than a few days, family head Wang continued. But Zhao Ling still did not want to retreat so easily. Your Highness, there are no buts. Your safety is the most important thing now. If anything happens to you, we will be in trouble. Your Highness, don't hesitate. Your Highness, if we don't retreat now, it will be too late. As long as the Lord is here, even if the imperial palace is temporarily given to that group of people, so what? Sooner or later, we will be able to take it back. Right now, the Lord is fighting on the battlefield. If something happens to you, Your Highness, it will definitely disturb the Lord and His Majesty. The patriarchs tried to persuade him. Zhao Ling looked at the family heads and thought for a long time with his brows furrowed. He could hear the battle cries outside, getting closer and closer. Zhao Ling had no choice but to agree. All right, we'll listen to the patriarchs. But where should we retreat to? Your Highness, don't worry. We have already made preparations before we came. As long as we retreat to the Tianyuan Academy, those traitors will not dare to act recklessly, said the Wang family head. Good. We'll retreat now. Hearing the Wang family head's words, Zhao Ling immediately stood up. Everyone, protect Her Highness and leave safely. Seeing Zhao Ling stand up, the head of the Wang family heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly said. In fact, the Wang family head was also worried that Zhao Ling would not leave the palace. It would be a pointless struggle, and it would be extremely troublesome. However, if Zhao Ling left, it would not be a problem to rely on the strength of the few of them and the 50,000 soldiers. Kill them, save the first princess, and you will all be heroes. The left prime minister, who was on the eldest princess's side, ordered his men. Left prime minister, the right prime minister is probably going to break through the west gate and save the second princess. An official in an official's uniform said to the left prime minister. The left prime minister frowned. Hurry up. We must save the eldest princess first. At this moment, a guard ran over and shouted, My lord, the third princess has broken through the south gate. Prime Minister, should we send people to stop them? The official beside the left prime minister quickly asked. Is there any movement from the right prime minister's side? The left prime minister asked. Not at the moment. Send out 50,000 soldiers to pursue the third princess. It would be best if they could kill her. Send someone to inform the left prime minister that the third princess is our common enemy. He should know what to do. The left prime minister ordered. Follow me. An official beside the left prime minister waved his hand and led the 50,000 soldiers away. My lord, the left prime minister has sent someone to report that the third princess has escaped through the south gate, an official said to the right prime minister. The right prime minister was a fat, middle-aged man with a pair of triangular eyes. The right prime minister looked at the city gate that was about to be broken. How many people did the left prime minister send to pursue the third princess? I think it's 50,000. The official quickly replied. Since he sent 50,000 people, we can't be weak. Led 50,000 people to pursue the third princess. The right prime minister looked at an official beside him. Yes, my lord. The official quickly agreed and waved his hand. Follow me. After leaving the palace, the Wang family head heaved a sigh of relief and said to Zhao Ling, Your Highness, we can leave the palace now. Zhao Ling looked at the palace with a frown. At this moment, a guard suddenly ran over and yelled, Not good. Your Highness, 50,000 soldiers are chasing after us at the west and east gates. Let's go, Your Highness, the Wang family head hurriedly said when he heard the guard. Okay, Zhao Ling nodded. Take the princess and leave first. I'll lead the soldiers and hold them off for a while, the Wang family head said to the other family heads. Old Wang, you have to be careful, the other family heads reminded the Wang family head. Don't worry, they're just a bunch of small fries. Although we can't defeat them, it's not a problem to hold them off. This is the Demon Emperor Breakthrough Pill. It can increase the cultivation of the Demon Emperor, Yi Hao said to Emperor Tianyuan. Of course, he didn't say that it was an upgrade pill. Instead, he made up a name. Demon Emperor Breakthrough Pill? This pill is very powerful. Emperor Tianyuan nodded when he heard Yi Hao's words. Although he had never heard of this pill before, there were countless pills in the ancient demon domain. How would he know all of them? What do you think of this pill? Yi Hao suddenly asked the Legion commanders. It's like a divine pill. The Legion commanders swallowed their saliva, and one of them suddenly said. Although the others didn't say anything, they all nodded at the same time. Chapter 946. What do you mean? Could it be that we also have a chance to get the divine pill? Did I hear wrongly? In other words, if we break through to the Demon Emperor realm, we have a chance to become a spiritualist. That's not right. The Lord actually has the pill to break through to the spiritualist realm. How is it possible that he doesn't have the pill to break through to the Demon Emperor realm? When everyone heard Yi Hao's words, they looked at Yi Hao, who was talking to Emperor Tianyuan, and discussed excitedly. All right. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Emperor Tianyuan nodded. He was still worried about Sky, Origin Royal City, when he left for the war. Although he already knew that Yi Hao had crippled the eldest and second princesses and put them under house arrest. Of course, he also knew that Yi Hao did this because the second princess sent someone to assassinate Zhao Ling, and the eldest princess rebelled. He was still grateful to Yi Hao because Yi Hao didn't harm the two princesses' lives. But he was worried about those ministers. With his understanding of those ministers, they would never be so obedient. Those ministers would never sit back and watch the eldest and second princesses be imprisoned. Moreover, he was now out on a campaign, which would be the best opportunity for those ministers to rebel. So he had been worried in his heart, and his body was getting worse day by day. Even if he died, he didn't want to die outside. He wanted to die in Sky, Origin Imperial City. He knew that he didn't have much time left. So when he heard that Yi Hao wanted to return to the capital, he naturally wouldn't refuse. Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, Huang Zhong, Ran Min, listen up. Yi Hao looked at Guan Yu and the others. We listen up. Guan Yu and the others immediately knelt on the ground. I order the four of you to take control of all the cities in the Broken Kingdom from 4 directions as fast as possible. Yi Hao ordered Guan Yu and the others. Yes, Your Majesty. Guan Yu and the other 3 immediately agreed. The current Broken Kingdom was like an ownerless object. Yi Hao believed that with the strength of Guan Yu and the others, it would be easy to control the Broken Kingdom. Moreover, an army of 8 million was more than enough to control Broken Kingdom. Yi Hao thought for a moment and continued to recruit. There is no upper limit. There's no upper limit for recruitment? What is my lord doing? Can you afford to raise so many soldiers? Hearing Yi Hao's words, all the commanders were shocked and looked at Yi Hao suspiciously. Guan Yu and the other three did not say anything because they knew Yi Hao very well. Yi Hao's goal was definitely to expand his territory and conquer the entire ancient demon realm. Naturally, he wouldn't complain about having too many soldiers. As for whether he could afford it, they believed that Yi Hao had the ability to do so. Yes, sir. Guan Yu and the others were all very excited at this moment. The reason for that was because it was time for the four of them to compete again. After all, each of them had 2 million soldiers under their command. In the future, who would be stronger and who would be weaker would depend on their own capabilities. My lord, what about us? The remaining 10 Legion commanders were afraid that Yi Hao would forget about them, so they spoke up in a trembling voice. Shang Xiang. Looking at the remaining 10 commanders, Yi Hao looked at Sun Shangxiang. This general is here. Sun Shangxiang hurriedly looked at Yi Hao excitedly. After all, Guan Yu and the others each had 2 million soldiers under their command. How could she not be envious? You will lead Broken Kingdom first. The rest of the army will follow me back to the capital. Yi Hao couldn't help but sigh inwardly. The number of soldiers under his command had suddenly increased, and the number of generals under his command was not enough. Now that he had only unified Broken Kingdom, the generals under his command had already been distributed. When the time came, Tianyuan Kingdom would belong to him, and the generals under his command would be even more insufficient. Moreover, he didn't intend to let Sun Shangxiang lead the soldiers and lead the 3 armies on the battlefield. After all, if he ascended the throne, he would have to improve the Imperial City Army. He wanted to let Sun Shangxiang lead the Imperial City Army. However, he couldn't abandon the remaining army of Broken Kingdom. Therefore, he could only temporarily hand it over to Sun Shangxiang to lead. Furthermore, the chiefs of the 3 divisions were all dead at this moment. The remaining 6 million soldiers also needed someone to manage them. Huang Zhong, give me all the information you've gathered. Yi Hao looked at Huang Zhong and said, when he had left for Broken Kingdom's Imperial City, he had given Huang Zhong an order to investigate all the generals of the 3 divisions. Yes, my lord. This is all the information. Huang Zhong immediately took out a space ring. This is the information of all the generals, from the centurions to the deputy marshals. After all, the information of so many generals was naturally piled up like a small mountain. Huang Zhong had no choice but to put all the information into the space ring. Yi Hao nodded satisfactorily and accepted it. Guan Yu and the other 3 then led their subordinates and left. Yi Hao and Emperor Tianyuan led close to 8 million soldiers back to Sky Origin Imperial City. When they had first arrived, there had only been 1 million soldiers. The 3 divisions' armies hadn't moved at all. When the 3 divisions' armies had arrived, the total number of soldiers had only been slightly more than 7 million. Now that the war was over, the number of soldiers had directly increased to 8 million. Who would have thought that after a war, the number of soldiers hadn't decreased, but had actually started to increase? If the 8 million soldiers returned to Sky Origin Imperial City together, the momentum would naturally be huge. The reason Yi Hao had allowed all these soldiers to return to Sky Origin Imperial City was because he wanted to reshuffle the cards of the 8 million soldiers. Along the way, Yi Hao hadn't been idle. Instead, he had been constantly flipping through the information Huang Zhong had gathered. Given Yi Hao's current cultivation base, the speed at which he read this information was naturally incomparable to that of an ordinary person. With that speed, he basically only needed to glance at a piece of information, and all the information would appear in his mind. Yi Hao had been constantly categorizing the information. He wanted to pick out those who were the black sheep of the herd, and those who could be nurtured and used. Although his reading speed was faster and his work efficiency was higher, the sheer amount of information was still quite a burden to him. But in order to control the 8 million soldiers, he couldn't slack off. After all, this was his army. If he slacked off, it would be over. Emperor Tianyuan had seen all of Yi Hao's hard work and couldn't help but nod approvingly. His eyes were filled with satisfaction. In his opinion, Yi Hao would only be able to sincerely manage a country in the future and become a good ruler if he was so serious in handling matters. After a few days, Yi Hao finally heaved a sigh of relief. It's finally settled. Chapter 947. So many. Sun Shangxiang looked at the list in her hand. There were close to 1,000 people, and she couldn't help but be shocked. One had to know that these weren't ordinary soldiers. The lowest rank was a centurion. Yet, Yi Hao actually wanted to kill so many people. How could she not be shocked? These people are lawless, corrupt, and made their soldiers burn and pillage. They deserve to die. Yi Hao said, as a monarch, he naturally couldn't be merciful. Those who deserved to be killed, he absolutely couldn't be merciful. Moreover, killing these people was like killing a chicken to warn the monkeys, warning the three armies. If these people were left alone, who knows what kind of trouble it would cause in the future. Of course, after killing so many generals, these people's vacancies naturally had to be filled by others. Therefore, Yi Hao also chose many suitable people to fill these vacancies. At this moment, everywhere the Tianyuan army passed, there were tens of thousands of people surrendering. Their faces were filled with excitement. This was because when the citizens of the Tianyuan kingdom knew that the Tianyuan kingdom was going to war with the Duan kingdom, they were all worried. Obviously, they had no confidence in the Tianyuan kingdom. However, the outcome was beyond their expectations. The Tianyuan kingdom actually won a complete victory. Moreover, they returned to the capital so early. This also meant that they didn't have to accept the baptism of war. To them, this was undoubtedly the happiest thing. Say, our Tianyuan kingdom's strength is weaker than the Duan kingdom. How do we win? You don't know. I heard that it was the work of our Tianyuan kingdom's third prince consort. That's right. I heard that the third prince consort subordinates killed the 8 demon emperors of the Duan kingdom. They even captured and killed the emperor of the Duan kingdom. What? Killing 8 demon emperors? This is too terrifying. Doesn't this mean that our Tianyuan kingdom has a chance to rise in the future? I heard that the third prince consort has already absorbed the entire army of the Duan kingdom and is now recovering the territory of the Duan kingdom. What? The third prince consort actually absorbed the entire army of the Duan kingdom? Isn't that so? The third prince consort is the savior of the Tianyuan kingdom. At this moment, all the citizens of the Tianyuan kingdom were discussing Yi Hao. Many people even worshipped Yi Hao as a god and the savior of Tianyuan kingdom. After all, the Tianyuan kingdom had always been bullied by the Duan kingdom. The ones who suffered the most were naturally the commoners. As for the commoners, they were unable to raise their heads and were even extremely worried. After all, they had to constantly worry about when the broken kingdom would attack the Tianyuan kingdom. If the Duan kingdom attacked the Tianyuan kingdom, wouldn't they be reduced to slaves? After all, after many countries were destroyed, their citizens would receive inhuman treatment. They would be reduced to slaves, becoming lower-class people. And now, not only had Yi Hao helped the Tianyuan kingdom obtain victory, he had even destroyed the Duan kingdom, relieving their worries. Naturally, many people began to praise Yi Hao. Yi Hao had not expected that he would be able to establish his prestige in the Tianyuan kingdom so quickly. It could be said that the third prince consort's prestige was even greater than Emperor Tianyuan's. Many people even privately discussed that Emperor Tianyuan did not have son. If the third prince consort could ascend the throne, how great would that be? Reporting to the Lord, there is news from the imperial city. Just as Yi Hao was still dealing with how to deal with the army, Sun Shangxiang suddenly spoke with an unpleasant expression. News from the imperial city? Hearing Sun Shangxiang's words, Yi Hao frowned and asked worriedly, "What's wrong with the imperial city?" Yi Hao could imagine that there had been no news from the imperial city. Now that there was news, something big must have happened. "My lord, please take a look." Seeing that Yi Hao's expression wasn't good, Sun Shangxiang handed a letter to him. Yi Hao took the letter and quickly opened it. Outrageous! These people should be killed. Yi Hao read the contents of the letter and was instantly enraged. He had not expected that these officials would be so ignorant. Back then, he had considered Emperor Tianyuan's face and did not do anything to these officials. But he had not expected that these officials would take advantage of the fact that he and Emperor Tianyuan were away on an expedition to openly rebel. The contents of the letter said that Emperor Tianyuan had died in battle. In order to ascend the throne, the two princesses each had a posthumous edict in their hands, saying that they were the ones who had inherited the throne by the heavens. The two princesses even wanted to divide the world into two and change the Tianyuan kingdom into Nanyuan and Buyuan. Many people who did not understand the truth were indeed deceived by the eldest and second princesses. Many city governors were also expressing their loyalty to the two princesses. In just a few days, the cities under the two princesses' command had already reached a few hundred cities. The people of the three divisions were also very restless and had colluded with the two princesses. The eldest and second princesses were expanding the cities under their command while promising a large sum of money to recruit soldiers and horses. The family heads of those cities seemed to have grasped the opportunity and had their people join the army. All the officials who had pledged their allegiance to the two princesses even contributed their own soldiers. This also caused the number of soldiers under the eldest princess to reach more than 3 million in a short period of time. The number of soldiers under the second princess command had also reached more than 2 million. It could be said that apart from the front line near the Broken Kingdom, more than half of the remaining Tianyuan kingdom had already been divided between the eldest and second princesses. In order to hunt down Zhao Ling, the two princesses had even sent a large number of troops to hunt down Zhao Ling. Zhao Ling first fled to the Tianyuan Academy. More than half of the 50,000 imperial city soldiers under his command had been killed or injured. Who knew that the eldest and second princesses did not intend to let Zhao Ling go? The two princesses joined forces and continued to send troops to encircle the Tianyuan Academy. In the end, Zhao Ling had no choice but to abandon the Tianyuan Academy. Under the protection of all the Academy's disciples, he retreated to the Rain Domain. Fortunately, the Rain Domain had 1 million soldiers guarding it, so the eldest and second princesses did not dare to act rashly. As long as Zhao Ling was fine, Yi Hao could not help but sigh in relief. However, the eldest and second princesses had actually started a second rebellion at this time, which naturally made him furious. My lord, should we tell Emperor Tianyuan about this matter? Obviously, Sun Shangxiang also knew what had happened and could not help but ask Yi Hao. Yi Hao frowned as he thought about the Emperor Tianyuan's current physical condition, which was deteriorating day by day. He was worried that something might happen to the Emperor Tianyuan and could not help but say, "Don't tell him yet." "Then, my lord, what should we do now?" "Let me lead the army and quell the rebellion," Sun Shangxiang said. "Let's first arrange a palace for the Emperor Tianyuan before we make any other plans." With the Emperor Tianyuan's current physical condition, it was impossible for him to follow him into battle. Therefore, the best way was to find a place for the Emperor Tianyuan to recuperate. Chapter 948. Your Majesty Tianyuan. Sun Shangxiang hurriedly bowed when he saw who it was. Yi Hao couldn't help but frown when he saw Emperor Tianyuan. He didn't expect Emperor Tianyuan to come here. "You know everything?" Yi Hao looked at Emperor Tianyuan and asked. Emperor Tianyuan nodded and said with an ugly expression, "Those two vile creatures caused such a big commotion. How could I not know?" "Then what do you want to do?" This was Emperor Tianyuan's family matter. Yi Hao wanted to seek Emperor Tianyuan's opinion. Cough, cough. Help me keep those two vile creatures alive. Cough, cough. I don't care about the rest. Emperor Tianyuan's face was ashen. Obviously, these ministers took advantage of his absence to sow discord between the eldest and second princesses, completely infuriating him. So he naturally wouldn't show mercy to these rebellious ministers. Yi Hao could feel it. Although Emperor Tianyuan was angry, he obviously didn't want to harm the eldest and second princesses. Yi Hao could see a trace of pleading in Emperor Tianyuan's eyes. It was obvious that Emperor Tianyuan still cared about the affection between father and daughter. After you successfully quell the rebellion, you can inherit the throne. Emperor Tianyuan thought for a moment and said, in his opinion, the sooner Tianyuan Kingdom was handed over to Yi Hao, the better it would be for Tianyuan Kingdom. The reason why the two princesses and many ministers dared to rebel so blatantly was because of his incompetence. It was all because of his incompetence as the emperor that the two princesses and the ministers did not put him in their eyes. And the incompetence of an emperor was bound to affect the entire country. Previously, Tianyuan Kingdom had been humiliated by Duan Kingdom time and time again. It had something to do with him, the emperor. Later on, Duan Tianya didn't take Tianyuan Kingdom seriously at all. They saw Tianyuan Kingdom as a fish on the chopping board, ready to be slaughtered at will. But he was also helpless. When his cultivation wasn't destroyed, Tianyuan Kingdom wouldn't have fallen to its current state. But after his cultivation was destroyed, he became a cripple for a long time and naturally neglected the court for a long time. Just as he was about to wake up, his only son died inexplicably. It was a double blow. It made him a cripple for a long time. Since then, he had no interest in the court. So he allowed the eldest and second princesses to interfere with the court. But later, Tianyuan Kingdom became desolate, and its land was divided by Duan Kingdom several times. And he was humiliated. That was the emperor. But he found out that the two princesses were actually related to Duan Kingdom. At that time, his heart sank. He knew that if he really handed the Tianyuan Kingdom to the first and second princesses, the Tianyuan Kingdom would definitely be destroyed. But when Tianyuan was Tianyuan Kingdom, was Tianyuan Kingdom. That was Tian's power was Tianyuan, was Tianyuan Kingdom? Was Tianya, when he saw Yi Hao destroy Duan Kingdom so easily, he was even more certain of his choice. So he planned to hand Tianyuan Kingdom over to Yi Hao as soon as possible and give Yi Hao the rightful identity of emperor. But no matter what, the two princesses were his blood. No matter how angry he was, no matter how disappointed he was, he couldn't harden his heart and kill the eldest and second princesses. Then don't die. Wait for me to return. I want to inherit the throne in a proper way. Yi Hao looked at Emperor Tianyuan and said jokingly. After all, with Emperor Tianyuan's health condition, he was worried that Emperor Tianyuan might really pass away at any time. Don't worry, cough, cough. I won't die so easily. Emperor Tianyuan coughed a few times and smiled with a pale complexion. You have to take good care of His Majesty. If anything happens to His Majesty, I'll deal with you. Yi Hao looked at Zhang Nianwei, who was standing beside Emperor Tianyuan, and said, hearing Yi Hao's words, Zhang Nianwei quickly smiled apologetically and said, Your Highness, don't worry. I will do my best to protect His Majesty. To be honest, Zhang Nianwei was still somewhat fearful of Yi Hao. Of course, he admired him even more, because he knew very well that if it weren't for Yi Hao, Tianyuan Kingdom would have been destroyed long ago. And if it weren't for Yi Hao, whether it was Emperor Tianyuan or himself, they would have died long ago. It was all because of the young man in front of him that Tianyuan Kingdom escaped death. Not only did he turn Tianyuan Kingdom's defeat into victory, but he also destroyed Duan Kingdom. So Zhang Nianwei admired Yi Hao from the bottom of his heart. Naturally, he listened to Yi Hao's words. Shang Xiang, let the three armies rest and prepare to quell the rebellion. Yi Hao ordered son Shangxiang. Your Majesty, bad news. The late emperor and Yi Hao have defeated Duan Kingdom. The original palace of Tianyuan Kingdom had been occupied by the eldest princess. The left prime minister bowed to the eldest princess anxiously. What? How is that possible? The eldest princess's expression changed when she heard the left prime minister's words. She stood up immediately. Duan Kingdom is so strong. How could our Tianyuan Kingdom win? The eldest princess's face was filled with disbelief. It was obvious that the eldest princess wasn't happy about Tianyuan Kingdom's victory. Instead, she looked a little flustered. In her opinion, The Duan Kingdom had more soldiers than the Tianyuan Kingdom. Just the 8 demon emperors of Duan Kingdom alone were untouchable by Tianyuan Kingdom. Thus, she believed that it was impossible for the Tianyuan Kingdom to win against the Duan Kingdom. But she couldn't understand why Duan Kingdom would lose under such circumstances and Emperor Tianyuan would emerge victorious. Do you know why Duan Kingdom lost? The eldest princess looked at the left prime minister and asked anxiously. I don't know. The left prime minister shook his head. After all, they had been busy recently in order to fight for territory, recruit troops, and develop their forces. They had been very busy. They didn't have the leisure to care about what happened on the battlefield. So there were many things that they didn't find out. Go and find out what's going on, the eldest princess said with a serious face. Yes, Your Majesty. The left prime minister bowed immediately. Damn it, why aren't you all dead? The eldest princess said with an ashen face after the left prime minister left. In the first princess's mind, the scene of Yi Hao getting someone to cripple her cultivation naturally reappeared. Thinking of this, the eldest princess's face was filled with murderous intent. This time, I won't rest until you die. The eldest princess now had an army of 3 million soldiers under her command. So, although she was afraid of Yi Hao, she was confident in her strength. However, the 3 million soldiers still gave him a certain amount of confidence. Moreover, she thought that even if Yi Hao defeated Duan Kingdom, he would suffer heavy losses. Chapter 949. Just like the eldest princess, the second princess received the same news as the eldest princess. The second princess's expression changed as well. My lord, which direction should we go first to quell the rebellion? In a military camp, a group of generals stood in front of a sand table map and surrounded it. Sun Shangxiang asked Yi Hao, "What do you all think?" Yi Hao didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the generals and asked, "Our army is here right now. With this general suggestion, we should split into 2 and attack the imperial capital and the new capital respectively." One of the generals said. The imperial capital he mentioned was the old imperial capital of the Tianyuan Kingdom. The new capital he mentioned was the place where the second princess was. The first princess and the second princess were located in the northwest and northeast respectively. Yi Hao's position was in the south, opposite the 2 princesses' position. My lord, the number of rebels in the 2 areas has reached 5 to 6 million. I don't think it's appropriate to attack them at the same time. That's right. If we split up and attack one of the forces first, the remaining force will be defeated without a fight. That's not right. If the 2 enemy forces know the number of our army, they will probably join forces. If that's the case, why don't we attack the imperial capital and the new capital at the same time? All of a sudden, the generals were in a heated argument. Enough, Yi Hao said in a deep voice when he heard what the generals said. All the generals immediately quieted down and looked at Yi Hao. You'll have to think carefully. Although there are more than 5 million rebels, most of them are just small fries that were recruited at 0 hours. We have 8 million soldiers. Not to mention that we outnumber them by more than 3 million. Just the quality of our army is not something that they can compare with. How can you all argue over this? What a joke. Yi Hao's gaze swept over the crowd, and a trace of disappointment appeared in his eyes. When the generals heard Yi Hao's words and saw the disappointment in Yi Hao's eyes, they all lowered their heads in shame. So Sun Shangxiang, listen up. Yi Hao turned his gaze to Sun Shangxiang. Present. Sun Shangxiang's valiant voice rang out. All the generals couldn't help but shudder. I order you to lead 2 million soldiers as the vanguard and attack the imperial capital. Do you have any objections? Yi Hao said to Sun Shangxiang. In his eyes, he did not care about the 2 princesses at all. Thus, in his opinion, the most important thing right now was to take back the imperial capital. As long as the imperial capital was in his hands, no matter how the ministers and the 2 princesses jumped around, they would be nothing more than grasshoppers after autumn. They wouldn't be able to jump around for more than a few days. This general obeys. Sun Shangxiang hurriedly accepted the order. Song Xiaotian, listen to my orders. Yi Hao looked at another general. Song Xiaotian used to be Lord Wu's subordinate. Originally, his highest position was to become a deputy chief. However, he had offended Lord Wu and was at odds with him. Thus, he had been suppressed by Lord Wu. Therefore, he directly made Song Xiaotian's days under Master Wuxi become more and more difficult. As a result, Song Xiaotian's position had been demoted from deputy chief to marshal of 1,000,000 soldiers, then to commander of 100,000 soldiers, and finally to captain. However, Song Xiaotian's life had fallen from glory to rock bottom. Perhaps his life would become even more miserable in the future. Fortunately, Song Xiaotian had met Yi Hao, and the prime minister had given him hope. According to Yi Hao's investigation, Song Xiaotian was an upright person. He was not bad in all aspects and met his requirement for selection. This general is present. Song Xiaotian looked at Yi Hao excitedly. This was because Song Xiaotian had a feeling that if nothing unexpected happened, this would be his chance to rise. I order you to lead 1,000,000 soldiers and follow behind Sun Shangxiang. You will take over the various cities and pacify the people so that my army can pass through smoothly. Do you have any objections? Yi Hao looked at Song Xiaotian and said, logically speaking, in Yi Hao's opinion, Song Xiaotian was indeed a good person. However, Song Xiaotian cultivation was only at the 10th level demon venerable. This did not meet his requirements. However, there was no other way. Since it had come to this, he could only force a duck onto a perch. Fortunately, Song Xiaotian had been a marshal before. Yi Hao still had a sense of direction with his 1,000,000 soldiers in his hands. This general will take over all the cities and not disappoint the Lord. I will welcome the Lord into the city. Song Xiaotian hurriedly bowed and said, Lu Zhong, heed my orders. Yi Hao looked at one of the middle-aged generals. Lu Zhong hurriedly bowed and said, this general is here. I will leave 1,000,000 soldiers for you to guard the cities in the south. If there are any mistakes, you will be held accountable. Yi Hao said to Lu Zhong. Lu Zhong was a marshal, and Yi Hao thought that he was a good person. Therefore, Yi Hao kept him. However, Yi Hao would not give him his old subordinates. Instead, he would give him a messed-up army and let Lu Zhong manage it. After all, if he gave Lu Zhong his old subordinates, although Lu Zhong was not bad now, he would eventually change. Moreover, everyone's desires would continue to grow. There is a saying that one may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. Therefore, for safety's sake, in order to save unnecessary trouble in the future, he gave Lu Zhong an unfamiliar army of 1,000,000 soldiers. At least, Lu Zhong would not dare to act recklessly. Naturally, there would be his men in this army of 1,000,000 soldiers. If Lu Zhong made any small movements, he would know. This general will definitely complete the task given by the Lord. If there are any mistakes, I will bring my head to see you. Lu Zhong immediately said excitedly. Meanwhile, the rest of the generals looked at Song Xiaotian and Lu Zhong enviously, because in this way, the two of them would have a fixed status. In the future, as long as the two of them did not do anything wrong or angered Yi Hao, their status would not fall. At the very least, the two of them had a higher starting point than the rest. Good. Everyone go and get ready. Yi Hao said to the crowd after he finished assigning the various tasks. After receiving Yi Hao's order, all the generals immediately went to get ready. When night fell, Sun Shangxiang led the 2,000,000 soldiers and rushed towards the imperial city. The army was full of fighting spirit along the way. That night, Sun Shangxiang's army swept through 3 cities. Of course, wherever the army passed, they only killed the rebels. They did not hurt the ordinary people at all. Naturally, they were loved and respected by countless people. This was because after the first and second princesses occupied the cities, the people who suffered the most were the ordinary people. Chapter 950. If they wanted to develop their forces and armies, they would need a large amount of resources. However, How could the eldest and second princesses take out so many resources? Therefore, they did not care about the lives of the people and started to increase taxes by a large margin, robbing the people of their wealth. It could be said that since the people were ruled by the eldest and second princesses, they had been living a miserable life. Every day, their lives were worse than the last. Therefore, these commoners naturally complained and cursed the two princesses behind their backs. Therefore, they could not help but miss the days when Emperor Tianyuan was still in power. At least, they did not have such a miserable life. Therefore, when they saw Sun Shangxiang with the slogan of quelling the rebellion, all the people were naturally very welcoming. Not long after Sun Shangxiang's army left, Song Xiaotian led 1,000,000 troops and followed closely behind. Song Xiaotian led the army and quickly took over the cities that Sun Shangxiang had conquered. After taking over the cities, he quickly pacified the people and captured the rebels. Then he left behind some soldiers to guard the cities. Song Xiaotian continued to lead the army and followed Sun Shangxiang closely. Song Xiaotian led the army and followed behind Sun Shangxiang. He was more and more surprised. This was because Song Xiaotian realized that the speed at which Sun Shangxiang attacked the cities was faster than the speed at which his army marched. Sun Shangxiang had a large number of troops and was extremely powerful. Attacking those cities was naturally easy and did not need to be taken seriously. Sometimes, there was no need for the army to attack the cities. Sun Shangxiang only needed to release his aura. All the rebels immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. Of course, there were also people who thought that they were strong. However, before they could show off to Sun Shangxiang, they were directly killed by Sun Shangxiang. As a result, the morale of the army was greatly boosted, and they were unstoppable all the way. After Sun Shangxiang and Song Xiaotian had set off, Yi Hao said goodbye to Emperor Tianyuan a day later and led the army to set off. Yi Hao led the remaining 4,000,000 soldiers towards the Sky Origin Royal City in a grandiose manner. Every time Song Xiaotian arrived in a city, he would be warmly welcomed by the citizens. It was clear that Song Xiaotian had done well in his mission. Along the way, Yi Hao naturally comforted the people and established his prestige. When the commoners saw the army led by Yi Hao, all of their faces were filled with shock, and their faces flushed with excitement. This was because they had never thought that Tianyuan would go to war with Duan Kingdom. Not only did they win, but they also had such a huge army. As citizens of the Tianyuan Kingdom, they naturally wanted to see the Tianyuan Kingdom grow stronger. Take care, Your Highness. Third Prince Consort, you must subdue the rebels. Your Highness, you must lead the Tianyuan Kingdom back to glory. After Yi Hao left the city, the citizens of the city scrambled to shout. The third Prince Consort is the savior of the Tianyuan Kingdom. If it wasn't for the third Prince Consort, how could the Duan Kingdom be destroyed? Thanks to the third Prince Consort, our Tianyuan Kingdom won. As long as the third Prince Consort is here, restoring the glory of the Tianyuan Kingdom will not be a problem. After Yi Hao left with the army, countless people began to discuss Yi Hao. Everyone was filled with admiration and respect for Yi Hao. As for why, everyone knew that Yi Hao had led the Tianyuan Kingdom to victory. Why did everyone know that Yi Hao had destroyed the Duan Kingdom? Naturally, someone had spread the news. This was naturally Song Xiaotian's doing. While subduing the cities, he had spread the news and praised Yi Hao's strength. Obviously, Song Xiaotian had done a good job. This was why the citizens were talking about Yi Hao and looked at Yi Hao with admiration. Song Xiaotian has done a good job. Yi Hao nodded in satisfaction. At the same time, the Tianyuan Royal City and the new capital city were in a state of chaos. Your Highness, in just one day, we have already lost 7 or 8 cities, a general said to the eldest princess with an ugly expression. Hearing the general's words, all the ministers began to discuss. How can Yi Hao's army be so fast? In just one day, they have already destroyed 7 or 8 of our cities. If this continues, our situation will not be optimistic. All of you be quiet. Hearing the quarrel of the ministers, the eldest princess became even more upset. Hearing the eldest princess's angry shout, all the ministers immediately quieted down. Let me ask you, have you investigated how many troops Yi Hao has brought? The eldest princess asked the general. Hearing the eldest princess's question, everyone immediately pricked up their ears. After all, this concerned their survival. Hearing the eldest princess's question, the general looked around the hall and hesitated. For a moment, he did not know what to say. Speak, the eldest princess said gloomily. Yes. Hearing the eldest princess's words, the general could only say, the enemy's vanguard has led 2 million troops and is heading straight for the imperial capital. What? 2 million troops? How can there be so many? Is this news true? Hearing the general's words, everyone began to discuss again. Their faces were full of shock. The eldest princess was no exception. She also had a look of shock on her face. Clearly, she also did not expect Yi Hao to send so many vanguard troops. Seeing how shocked the eldest princess and the ministers were after hearing this, the general had no choice but to continue. Moreover, the enemy has sent 1 million troops to continuously take over the cities. Phew, hearing this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. I was wondering why they have so many troops. So it turns out that they only have 3 million troops. Haha, just the vanguard alone has 2 million troops. If we can eliminate these 2 million troops, won't we be able to achieve a complete victory? That's right. Why didn't you say so earlier? You gave us all a shock. Many of the ministers even looked at the general with some resentment. Clearly, everyone had misunderstood and thought that Yi Hao only had 3 million troops. Hearing the ministers' discussion, the eldest princess immediately shouted coldly, "All of you, be quiet." Because the eldest princess could see that the general's expression did not look too good, she felt that this matter was definitely not as simple as it seemed. Seeing that all the ministers had quieted down, the general continued, and that Yi Hao is leading 4 million troops as the vanguard and is heading straight for us. How many? 4 million. The eldest princess could not remain calm at this moment. She immediately stood up in shock. Chapter 9:51. That bastard. How could he have so many soldiers? Even if all the soldiers of the Tianyuan kingdom were added together, it would still be impossible for him to have so many soldiers. The second princess roared in disbelief after she calmed down. After all, according to her understanding, the entire Tianyuan kingdom only had 7 million soldiers. According to her assumption, even if Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers to defeat the Duan kingdom, they would suffer heavy losses. After all, the people of the Duan kingdom were not fools. They wouldn't just stand there and let themselves be killed. However, she actually heard that Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers to attack the imperial city. She couldn't help but wonder where Yi Hao got so many soldiers. It couldn't be that Yi Hao didn't suffer any losses after the war with the Duan kingdom. To be honest, when she heard that Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers, she panicked deep down. Although she recruited 2 million soldiers in a short period of time, she knew the standard of her 2 million soldiers. The 2 million soldiers didn't go through formal training and were just a bunch of small fries. Even if there were only 400,000 or 500,000 regular soldiers, they would be able to crush the 2 million strong army. She originally thought that even after the war between Yi Hao and the Duan kingdom ended, there shouldn't be many soldiers left. Since there weren't many soldiers left, they couldn't control her. That was why she dared to establish a new country. But now, Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers over. How could she be his opponent? Besides the 7 million soldiers, she didn't have any generals under her command who could deal with Sun Shangxiang. Even now, she couldn't forget the terror of Sun Shangxiang in her mind. At this moment, the imperial court had already turned into a pot of porridge. Countless ministers had regretful looks on their faces at this moment, because they heard that Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers over. Therefore, they felt that they couldn't fight back against Yi Hao. If it was something else, they might still have a way out. But they were rebelling. This was the crime of rebelling. Rebelling would result in the execution of 9 generations. Even if they had 100 heads, it wouldn't be enough to behead. At this moment, he was filled with regret. Why did they not want to be ministers and enjoy the glory and wealth? Why did they have to rebel? Now, not only were they unable to live a good life, they even had to live in fear, worried that Yihao would break through the city gates and kill them one by one. Your Highness, an official turned to the second princess with a panicked expression. Hearing the minister's words, the second princess's expression changed, and she glared fiercely at the minister. How dare you address His Majesty like that? The Prime Minister of the Right roared. The official's face also changed. He knew that he had addressed the emperor wrongly. He hurriedly knelt and said, "Your Majesty, please spare my life. This humble official has misspoken. This humble official knows his mistake. Give him 50 slaps to teach him a lesson." The second princess said in a low voice, "Yes, this humble subject knows his mistake. This humble subject knows his mistake. This humble subject knows his mistake." When the minister heard the second princess's words, he knelt on the ground and kept slapping his mouth. "All right, what do you want to say? Say it." The second princess asked impatiently when she saw the minister slapping himself 20 to 30 times. "This humble subject boldly suggests that we surrender. On account of the sisterhood between the second princess and the third princess, as well as His Majesty's father-daughter relationship, the third prince consort probably won't hurt you," the minister said with a red and swollen face. "Rebel, do you know what you're saying?" The Prime Minister of the Right roared before the second princess could say anything. Although the second princess didn't say anything, her face was also livid. This was because the minister's words were undoubtedly bewitching and swaying the hearts of the other ministers. "Prime Minister, I don't know about anything else. I only know that if we continue to resist stubbornly, all of us here will not be able to escape death. That's right, we're all loyal to the second princess, but we can't let all of us die in vain just because of this. Everyone, don't you agree?" After the minister finished speaking, he looked at the other ministers. The other ministers looked at each other. Obviously, many of them agreed with the minister's words. However, none of them dared to speak up for fear of angering the second princess. When the second princess heard the minister's words, although she didn't look too happy, her heart was also swayed. After all, the gap between her strength and Yihao's was simply too big. Even she didn't have the confidence to go against Yihao. "You are deluding the public with your lies. You deserve to die." Unexpectedly, at this moment, a long sword suddenly appeared in the Prime Minister of the Right's hand, and he directly stabbed the minister kneeling on the ground. That minister was no match for the Prime Minister of the Right. Therefore, in his panic, the long sword directly pierced through his throat. "You?" The minister clutched his throat indignantly, but he couldn't stop the blood from gushing out. Many of the ministers were shocked when they saw this scene. They took a few steps back in panic and looked at the Prime Minister of the Right with fear. Whoever dares to speak nonsense and boost the morale of others while diminishing their own morale will end up like this. The Prime Minister of the Right held the long sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was still dripping with blood. The Prime Minister of the Right swept his cold gaze across all the civil and military ministers in the main hall. None of the civil and military ministers dared to look him in the eye. They all lowered their heads in fear. "Prime Minister, you—" Seeing that the Prime Minister of the Right dared to kill a minister in public in the main hall, the second princess immediately frowned. This was because he didn't take her seriously at all. But before she could finish speaking, the Prime Minister of the Right threw the long sword in his hand to one side and knelt on the ground. Tears streamed down his face as he said, "Your Majesty, please investigate. I did all of this for Your Majesty's sake. Your Majesty, think about it. Things have already come to this point. Is there really any way back? Even if we surrender, will Yihao let us off?" Yes, the third princess might have taken into account our sisterly relationship in the past. But we sent an army to pursue the third princess. Will the third princess let us off? Moreover, Even if the late emperor cared about the relationship between father and daughter, he would not have forgiven the rebellion. The right prime minister looked at the second princess as he spoke earnestly. The second princess paused when she heard this. Obviously, what the prime minister of the right said made sense. Prime minister, do you have any suggestions? What should we do now? The second princess couldn't help but look at the prime minister of the right and ask. Hearing the second princess's question, the rest of the ministers quickly looked at the prime minister of the right. Obviously, everyone had pinned their hopes of survival on the prime minister of the right. Actually, we might not necessarily lose this war. The prime minister of the right suddenly laughed. Chapter 952. Because we still have reinforcements. The right prime minister smiled. Reinforcements? We still have reinforcements? But where are the reinforcements? But what reinforcements can defeat Yi Hao's 7 million strong army? Prime Minister, are you joking with us? Hearing the right prime minister's words, the ministers couldn't help but discuss suspiciously. The second princess also had a look of disbelief. She couldn't help but smile bitterly. Prime Minister, stop joking. Where else can we find reinforcements in the huge Tianyuan kingdom? Hearing the second princess's words, the right prime minister couldn't help but smile. He then took out a letter and said, Your Majesty, please take a look. Bring it up. The second princess said to the maid beside her. When the maid heard the second princess, she quickly walked to the right prime minister's side, took the letter from him, and handed it to the second princess. The second princess took the letter curiously and glanced at the right prime minister, who knew that the right prime minister would nod with a smile. The second princess couldn't help but open the letter curiously. All the ministers also looked at the second princess curiously, who knew that the second princess would be delighted after reading the letter. Is this true? The second princess couldn't help but ask excitedly. She looked at the right prime minister with anticipation. When the rest saw the second princess's reaction, they revealed even more curious expressions and looked at the second princess. It's absolutely true. How would I dare to lie to your majesty? The right prime minister said with a smile. But prime minister, how could you be related to the Black Sword sect? And why would the Black Sword sect agree to help us? The second princess asked in confusion. Your majesty, you don't know that I have an adopted son who is a member of the Black Sword sect. However, I didn't expect that kid to have such achievements after joining the Black Sword sect. The right prime minister said proudly. What? The Black Sword sect? Prime Minister, you have an adopted son from the Black Sword sect. Does this mean that we are saved this time? Hearing the right prime minister's words, many of the ministers were excited. The Black Sword sect was definitely not weak in the Tianyuan kingdom. In the heyday of the Tianyuan kingdom, the Black Sword sect used to be a subsidiary sect of the Tianyuan kingdom. However, as the Black Sword sect became stronger and stronger, they gradually broke away from the Tianyuan kingdom. And now, the powerful Black Sword sect was an existence that even the Tianyuan kingdom could not fawn over. In their opinion, if the Black Sword sect were to help them, they would definitely win this time. So that's how it is. May I know where the Prime Minister's adopted son is? When the time comes, how many people will be sent to help us? Hearing the right Prime Minister's words, the second princess suddenly understood and hurriedly asked, Your Majesty, my adopted son is waiting outside, waiting for your Majesty to summon him. The Prime Minister of the right replied, Prime Minister, you're treating me as an outsider. How can you let your son wait outside? Quickly call him in. No, all of you, follow me to personally welcome him. The second princess stood up and said. Then, the second princess rushed out of the palace hall in a hurry. All the ministers followed behind the second princess and walked out. Outside the hall stood a black-clothed youth with a long sword on his back. He stood proudly on the stone steps. Prime Minister, hurry up and introduce him to me. Looking at the young man before her, the second princess looked at the right prime minister and said, This is my son, Hong Qingyun. Qingyun, hurry up and greet your majesty. The right prime minister said to Hong Qingyun. When Hong Qingyun saw the second princess, his eyes lit up I've always heard that your majesty is a peerless talent. Now that I've met you today, you're indeed extraordinary. May I have a few drinks with you?" Hearing that Hong Qingyun actually dared to flirt with the second princess, many of the ministers were immediately displeased. If not for the right prime minister's face and their fear of the Black Sword sect, some of them would have reprimanded Hong Qingyun. "Qingyun, don't be rude." The right prime minister pretended to be angry and hurriedly shouted, "It's all right. Young Master Qingyun really does not stick to one pattern." The second princess did not blame him at all. Instead, she turned around and ordered with a smile, "Men, prepare the banquet." The second princess had been forced into a corner. Now that Hong Qingyun had finally appeared, she naturally had to suck up to him. After all, whether she could defeat Yi Hao or not depended entirely on Hong Qingyun. Seeing that the second princess was not angry, the right prime minister could not help but nod in satisfaction. When the ministers saw the second princess in this state, they naturally could not say anything more. Young Master Qingyun's appearance is extraordinary. I wonder what young Master Qingyun's cultivation level is now. Under the second princess's signal, a minister asked Hong Qingyun, "Third Order Demon Emperor." Hong Qingyun exclaimed proudly as he released his aura. Feeling the power of Hong Qingyun's aura, many of the ministers could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was because no one present had a higher cultivation base than Hong Qingyun. Seeing Hong Qingyun's cultivation level, the right prime minister could not help but feel gratified. He said proudly, "As expected of my son, his talent is outstanding. At such a young age, he has reached the Third Order Demon Emperor. He is much stronger than your husband." The prime minister's people are indeed dragons and phoenixes among men. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Young Master Qingyun is actually a Third Order Demon Emperor powerhouse. The Prime Minister is really lucky to have such a good son. After being shocked by Hong Qingyun's cultivation level, the ministers could not help but flatter him. "Ha! Everyone is flattering me." The right Prime Minister heard the flattery and could not help but feel happy. Although everyone was shocked by Hong Qingyun's strength, and the dissatisfaction in their hearts towards Hong Qingyun had lessened. However, the second princess showed a trace of dissatisfaction. If it was in the past, when she saw a Third Order Demon Emperor powerhouse, she would definitely try to curry favor with them. But compared to Sun Shangxiang's strength, in her eyes, Hong Qingyun's strength was really nothing. In front of Sun Shangxiang, Hong Qingyun would not be able to defeat him in a second. Hong Qingyun's gaze was always on the second princess. He thought that if he released his cultivation level, the second princess would be shocked and tempted by him. But he found that the second princess's eyes were looking at him with a trace of disappointment. Seeing this trace of disappointment, Hong Qingyun was very puzzled. At the same time, he was very unhappy in his heart. Then, Hong Qingyun's face became ugly. The right prime minister's eyes were very sharp. He immediately noticed that the atmosphere was not right. He hurried to the second princess and asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, is Qingyun making you unhappy? Although his cultivation level is strong, I am afraid that he is not Yi Hao's opponent." The second princess said truthfully. The right prime minister was slightly surprised. He did not expect that a Third Order Demon Emperor cultivation level would not be enough. Chapter 953. That bastard. How could he have so many soldiers? Even if all the soldiers of the Tianyuan kingdom were added together, it would still be impossible for him to have so many soldiers. The second princess roared in disbelief after she calmed down. After all, according to her understanding, the entire Tianyuan kingdom only had 7 million soldiers. According to her assumption, even if Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers to defeat the Duan kingdom, he would suffer heavy losses. After all, the people of the Duan kingdom were not fools. They would not stand there and be killed. However, she actually heard that Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers to attack the imperial city. She could not help but wonder where Yi Hao got so many soldiers. It was impossible that Yi Hao did not suffer any losses after going to war with the Duan Kingdom. To be honest, when she heard that Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers, she panicked deep down. Although she recruited 2 million soldiers in a short time, she was clear about the standard of her 2 million soldiers. The 2 million soldiers did not undergo formal training and were just a bunch of small fries. Even if there were only 4 or 500,000 regular soldiers, they would be able to crush the 2 million strong army. She originally thought that even after the war between Yi Hao and the Duan Kingdom ended, there should not be many soldiers left. Since there were not many soldiers left, they could not control her. That was why she dared to establish a new country. But now, Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers. How could she be his opponent? Besides the 7 million soldiers, she did not have any generals under her command who could deal with Sun Shangxiang. Even at this moment, she could not forget the horror of Sun Shangxiang in her mind. At this moment, the imperial court had already turned into a pot of porridge. Countless ministers looked regretful at this moment, because they heard that Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers over. Therefore, they felt that it was simply impossible for them to retaliate against Yi Hao. If it was something else, they might still have a way out. But they were rebelling. This was the crime of rebellion. Rebelling would result in the execution of 9 generations. Even if they had 100 heads, it would not be enough to behead. At this moment, he was filled with regret. Why did they not want to be ministers and enjoy the glory and wealth? Why did they have to rebel? Now, not only were they unable to live a good life, they even had to live in fear, worried that Yi Hao would break through the city gates and kill them one by one. Your Highness, an official turned to the second princess with a panicked expression. Hearing the minister's words, the second princess's expression changed, and she glared fiercely at the minister. How dare you address His Majesty like that? The Prime Minister of the Right roared. The official's face also changed. He knew that he had addressed the emperor wrongly. He hurriedly knelt and said, "Your Majesty, please spare my life. This humble official has misspoken. This humble official knows his mistake. Give him 50 slaps to teach him a lesson." The second princess said in a low voice, "Yes, this humble subject knows his mistake. This humble subject knows his mistake. This humble subject knows his mistake." When the minister heard the second princess's words, he knelt on the ground and kept slapping his mouth. "All right, what do you want to say? Say it." Seeing that the minister had slapped himself 20 to 30 times, the second princess asked impatiently, "This humble subject boldly suggests that we surrender. On account of the sisterhood between the second princess and the third princess, as well as His Majesty's father-daughter relationship, the third prince consort shouldn't hurt you." The minister said with a red and swollen face, "That dog, how could he have so many soldiers? Even if all the soldiers of the Tianyuan kingdom were added together, it wouldn't be that many." The second princess shouted in disbelief after she calmed down from the shock in her heart. After all, according to her understanding, the entire Tianyuan kingdom only had 7 million soldiers. According to her assumption, even if Yi Hao led the 7 million soldiers to defeat the Duan kingdom, they would suffer heavy losses. After all, the people of the Duan kingdom weren't fools. They wouldn't just stand there and let themselves be killed. However, she actually heard that Yi Hao was actually leading the 7 million soldiers to attack the imperial city. She couldn't help but wonder where Yi Hao got so many soldiers from. It couldn't be that Yi Hao didn't suffer any losses after going to war with the Duan kingdom. To be honest, when she heard that Yi Hao was leading the 7 million soldiers, she panicked in the depths of her heart. Although she recruited 2 million soldiers in a short period of time, she was clear about the standard of her 2 million soldiers. Those 2 million soldiers didn't go through formal training and were just a bunch of small fries. Even if there were only 400,000 to 500,000 regular soldiers, they would be able to defeat the 2 million soldiers. She originally thought that even after the war between Yi Hao and the Duan kingdom ended, there wouldn't be many soldiers left. Since there weren't many soldiers left, they wouldn't be able to control her. That was why she dared to establish a new country. But now, Yi Hao was leading the 7 million soldiers. How could she be his opponent? Moreover, other than the 7 million soldiers, she didn't have any generals under her command who could deal with Sun Shangxiang. Even at this moment, she couldn't forget the terror of Sun Shangxiang in her mind. At this moment, the imperial court had already turned into a pot of porridge. Countless ministers had expressions of regret on their faces at this moment. This was because they heard that Yi Hao was leading the 7 million soldiers. Therefore, they felt that they couldn't fight back against Yi Hao at all. If this was something else, they might still have a way out. But they were rebelling. This was the crime of rebellion. Rebelling would result in 9 familial exterminations. Even if they had 100 heads, it wouldn't be enough to chop off. At this moment, they were very regretful. Why didn't they become ministers and enjoy the glory and wealth? Why did they have to rebel? Now, not only were they unable to live a good life, but they were also on tenterhooks, worried that Yi Hao would break through the city gates and kill them one by one. Your Highness, a minister looked at the second princess and was about to speak with a flustered expression. Hearing the minister's words, the second princess's expression suddenly changed, and she glared fiercely at the minister. Impudent! How dare you address Her Majesty like that? The Prime Minister of the Right roared. The minister's expression also changed. He knew that he had addressed Her Majesty wrongly and hurriedly knelt on the ground. Your Majesty, please spare my life. It was a slip of the tongue. I know my mistake. Slap yourself 50 times. You'll remember this. The second princess said in a low voice. Yes, I know my mistake. I know my mistake. I know my mistake. The minister knelt on the ground and kept slapping himself when he heard the second princess's words. All right, what do you want to say? Say it. The second princess asked impatiently when she saw the minister slapping himself 20 to 30 times. Chapter 954. Who do you want to kill? In less than 3 days, I will have his head in front of you. Hong Qingyun said confidently. The enemy's general, Sun Shangxiang. The second princess said directly. Judging from the name, it's a woman? Hong Qingyun asked curiously. Why? Young Master Qingyun, are you interested in women? Seeing Hong Qingyun's curious look, the second princess complained unhappily. Of course not. Hong Qingyun laughed awkwardly and said, Men. Whoosh, whoosh. Everyone only saw a blur before 2 middle-aged men appear in front of them. Young master. The 2 middle-aged men bowed respectfully to Hong Qingyun. Go, kill the one called Sun Shangxiang. Hong Qingyun ordered the 2 of them. Yes. Hearing Hong Qingyun's order, the 2 men quickly left the hall. Seeing the 2 men leave, the second princess asked, What are their cultivations? Can they defeat Sun Shangxiang? Don't worry. Both of them are 10th-order demon emperors. With the 2 of them, dealing with a 10th-order demon emperor is a piece of cake. Hong Qingyun said confidently. Hearing Hong Qingyun's words, the second princess nodded her head in relief. Your Majesty, if Sun Shangxiang is killed, the enemy will have no general. This will be our chance. I have a suggestion. The Right Prime Minister quickly said. What suggestion? Please speak. The second princess looked at the Right Prime Minister. We should contact the first princess and join forces to attack Sun Shangxiang's vanguard. If the first princess is not stupid, she should know that Yi Hao is our common enemy. The Right Prime Minister looked at the second princess and said slowly. Hearing the Right Prime Minister's words, the second princess nodded her head and thought that the Right Prime Minister's words made sense. After all, Yi Hao's current military strength was simply too strong. If Yi Hao was not destroyed, she and the first princess would not have a day of peace. They would be constantly on the edge. Moreover, if Yi Hao was not destroyed, she and the first princess could be destroyed at any time. On the other hand, if Yi Hao was destroyed, then the entire Tianyuan kingdom would belong to her and the first princess. At that time, she and the first princess would be evenly matched. She would then join forces with Hong Qingyun to defeat the eldest princess. By then, the entire Tianyuan kingdom would be hers alone. All right, then quickly send someone to contact her. If she wants to destroy Yi Hao, then send her troops quickly. The second princess ordered the right prime minister. The right prime minister nodded. Don't worry, Your Majesty. I'll send someone to deliver the letter. Your Majesty, the second princess sent a letter asking us to send troops to fight Sun Shangxiang's army together with them. At this moment, in the imperial capital of Tianyuan Kingdom, the left minister reported to the first princess. I allow it. The eldest princess agreed immediately upon hearing the left prime minister's words. Right now, she couldn't wait to join forces with the second princess. This was because Sun Shangxiang's army's route of attack was very clear. They were heading straight for the Sky Origin Kingdom. If she were to rely on her own strength, she would not be a match for Sun Shangxiang's army. Therefore, now that the second princess had taken the initiative to form an alliance, she was more than happy to oblige. As the eldest princess and the second princess joined forces, the second princess sent out 5 million troops, while the eldest princess sent out 5 million troops. A total of 4 million troops gathered and charged towards Sun Shangxiang's army. My lord, the traitorous eldest princess and the second princess have joined forces. They have sent out a total of 4 million troops to attack Marshal Sunday. Should we send reinforcements? A general walked up to Yi Hao and asked respectfully. They're just a bunch of small fries. Don't worry. Yi Hao waved his hand and said nonchalantly. Although the eldest princess and the second princess had sent out a large number of troops, Yi Hao knew their quality very well. Therefore, he trusted Sun Shangxiang very much. If Sun Shangxiang, with 2 million elite troops, couldn't even deal with 4 million small fries, then Sun Shangxiang would be in vain. Let the army continue to advance towards the imperial capital. Yi Hao continued to instruct the general. Marshal, Bright Moon City is right in front of us, a general said to Sun Shangxiang as he pointed at the city in front of them. This general was also full of admiration for Sun Shangxiang. It should be known that the other marshals were all overseeing the 3 armies and basically wouldn't make a move themselves. Sun Shangxiang, on the other hand, wasn't overseeing the 3 armies at all. Instead, he was treating himself as a vanguard general. However, Sun Shangxiang was a vanguard general who couldn't be compared to an ordinary vanguard general. Sun Shangxiang was able to break through the city gates in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, there wasn't a large army that could stop Sun Shangxiang. Furthermore, Sun Shangxiang never got tired of attacking cities. This greatly increased the speed at which the army broke through the city gates. Over the past few days, Sun Shangxiang had single-handedly broken through 60 to 70 cities. Please wait for a moment. Let me break through this city, Sun Shangxiang said as he looked at Bright Moon City in front of him and sped towards it. Bright Moon City, listen up. I am Sun Shangxiang, the Grand Marshal of Tianyuan Kingdom's vanguard. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and open the city gates so that innocent people don't get hurt. Sun Shangxiang shouted as he arrived at Bright Moon City. I was wondering who it was. So it's the famous Grand Marshal Sun Shangxiang. An official walked out of the city walls. This official was naturally the one in charge of Bright Moon City. Previously, he had been very worried that Bright Moon City would fall and that Sun Shangxiang would attack Bright Moon City. But now, he looked at Sun Shangxiang without the slightest hint of fear on his face. Seeing this, Sun Shangxiang didn't say anything. The general beside him said anxiously, Marshal, be careful. This might be a trap. It's fine. Sun Shangxiang waved her hand and looked at the official. She knew that if the official dared to speak to her like this, he must have some trump card. Although Sun Shangxiang didn't seem to care, he had already begun to accumulate power and looked in the direction of Bright Moon City warily. Marshal Sun has worked hard to come here. I have prepared a gift for Marshal Sunday. I wonder if Marshal Sun has prepared it yet? The official looked at Sun Shangxiang and smiled sinisterly. Stop pretending to be mysterious. Come at me if you have any tricks up your sleeve. Sun Shangxiang looked at the official and shouted coldly. My lords, Grand Marshal Sun Shangxiang is here. Please make your move. The official suddenly shouted. Whoosh, Whoosh! Suddenly, two air-piercing sounds were heard. In the next instant, two figures appeared directly in front of Sun Shangxiang. If Hong Qingyun were here, he would definitely be able to recognize that these were the two guards that he had sent. The two middle-aged men appeared, their eyes fixed on Sun Shangxiang. One of them asked, "You are Sun Shangxiang? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."